The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy. You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry Radio. No, News Talk. It's July 30th, 2021, and today, I SPY SCI OP. My name is Gonz. If this is the first time you're checking out Canary Cry News Talk, welcome. And make sure to go to CanaryCry.Talk.com to get all your show notes and everything. Yeah, no Basil today. Now, if you're listening for the first time, normally I have a co-host to handle all of the introductions and all the things that you do to be nice to people. Not happening today. Basil is stuck in a time loop, and so I'll be doing this solo today. We'll see how it goes. But welcome to the podcast, Canary Cry News Talk, where we bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. And as you see over there, Basil is just a googly eye with cowboy hat, just hanging out. He's here virtually, or maybe in spirit, but not in person. I do have the robot version of Basil. Basil, are you how you feeling over there?
Gotta get that hype, bro.
All right. Good stuff. Hope everything is all right over there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sure he'll chime in every once in a while when we discuss certain stories and, cover certain things. But I do want to start off by letting everybody know that the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel, which I've been running since 2011, was not only deleted this last couple days ago, but they rejected the appeal as well. So that means it's literally gone. I don't have any access to it. It's pretty much done for. I tried to appeal, and the reason why I bring that up is because about a month ago, the Face Like the Sun channel was deleted, and I was surprised to see that I just realized that certain things were not updated in the show notes or the description section of some of this stuff. Great. But sorry, getting back to the stuff here. So yes, I tried to appeal it, and again, about a month ago, same thing. I hit my third strike, and they deleted the channel, and I tried to appeal, and they actually accepted it, to my surprise, to everyone's surprise, really. But this time, they did not accept it. They sent me this email. Thank you for your account suspension appeal. We have decided to keep your account suspended based on our community guidelines in terms of service. I don't know. They won't explain to me exactly what the violations were. They just say, oh, you violated community guidelines, medical misinformation. No specifics, which is fairly typical of the way YouTube works nowadays. So not surprising whatsoever, but it is something that was expected. I knew this was going to happen. Everybody kind of knew it was going to happen. It's just a matter of time, but alas, they have done it. And, it was a good run. 10 years, 44 million views, 266,000 subscribers. They had capped the subs on the channel. It didn't grow for, 2 years. It was stuck at 260,000 subscribers. And I can't access any of the analytics now, but when I was able to, you can see that there were periods of time when they would purposefully just drop subscriptions by the hundreds, sometimes by the thousands, to keep it capped. And so, to make sure it didn't grow any more than it did. So what it is what it is. We live in this world right now where YouTube is acting like a totalitarian dictatorship, an authoritarian, news front to, control the information that gets out there. And what are you going to do? So in the meantime, we have our Canary Cry News Talk backup channel and all the videos. If you do want to search out the videos that I had published in the last 10 years, you can go to facelikthesun.info, which will give you a link tree to all the different links where I've connected my stuff to, including BitChute and this Odyssey. Well, I say this, but the Odyssey channel, Rumble. I don't think Rumble has the archive. Odyssey and BitChute has the archive, so you can go there, and all the links are there at facelikthesun.info. Or if you want to go to facelikthesun.live, it'll take you straight to BitChute, which I have to update the last couple News Talk episodes there, but I can't keep up with all the administrative work that needs to be done to keep up with the different platforms. But hopefully you guys can use those tools that are out there to at least keep the message alive and the information that was compiled over the last 10 years alive. Share it with friends and family and whatnot. Okay, so let's see. Yes, Basil stuck in a time loop. For those of you watching, his googly eyes are still here and they're looking at you. So just keep in mind that he's around. He's just not present. And give me a moment here. And this is the problem with doing this solo nowadays is, Basil talks half the time. So when I run solo, I have to make sure that I can do some of the administrative work that needs to be done at the same time as I'm talking. So that includes things like moving the little chat box thing here so that people can see what's going on and all that kind of fun stuff. All right, so let's get into it. I'm going to try to keep things a little shorter today because I'm doing it solo and I don't want to ramble for too long. But I'm going to start off with this clip from the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell. He was asked about what transitory inflation meant. And here's what he said, although I'm just going to play the full 2 minutes because it just speaks for itself. Now, I know people watching are going to see the video and wonder why Jerome Powell's head looks like an alien and his ears look like elf ears. I think part of it is because whoever was filming this, they got it off of a computer screen and they were using their phone. And so the certain angles where they were holding the camera up against the screen makes it look like he's some kind of alien elf creature. So, I get it. He looks weird. But what's even weirder is him trying to explain transitory inflation.
The concept of transitory is really this. It is that the increases will happen. We're not saying they will reverse. That's not what transitory means. It means that the increases in prices will happen. So there will be inflation, but that the process of inflation will stop so that there won't be further. When we think of inflation, we really think of inflation going up year upon year upon year upon year. That's inflation. When you have inflation for 12 months or whatever it may be, I'm just taking an example and not making an estimate, then you have a price increase, but you don't have an inflation process. And so part of that just is that if it doesn't affect longer-term inflation expectations, then it's very likely not to affect the process of inflation going forward. So what I mean by transitory is just...
Did you notice that he said infect instead of... what was he trying to say?
Affect the process to affect.
Effect. He was trying to say effect, but he said infect. What's on your mind, Alien Powell?
The process of inflation going forward. So what I mean by transitory is just something that doesn't leave a permanent mark on the inflation process. Again, I don't mean that producers are going to take those price increases back. That's not the idea. It's just that they won't go on indefinitely. So to the extent people are implementing price increases because raw materials are going up or labor costs or something's going up, the question really for inflation really is, does that mean they're going to go up the next year by the same amount? So you're going to be in a process where the inflation process gets going, and that happens because people's expectations about future inflation move up, and we don't think that's happening. There's no evidence that it's happening. All the evidence is that it's not happening. But nonetheless, we have to watch this very carefully, because this is, we have two mandates: maximum employment and price stability. Price stability for us means inflation averaging 2% over time, and so we've got to be very careful about that. But I think it's a good point that it's a term. What it really means is temporary. But then you got to understand that it doesn't mean that the increases will be taken back. Some of them will be, but that's not really what it means.
Okay, so inflation is going to happen, or is happening, but it's not happening. But also the prices aren't going to ever go down. I mean, if there's anybody who's out there who, especially the younger people, because you're not going to get a financial education in public schools or even private schools. I don't think they really do financial education. I certainly didn't get any. And really, for me personally, it wasn't until I started looking into Bitcoin that I really started to grasp, like, okay, what is going on with the Federal Reserve and, the fiat currency system. And I knew about the issues before. And I was kind of a gold bug before, and, I had read or tried to read through all of The Creature from Jekyll Island by Edward G. Griffin. And I understood that the financial system was fraudulent, and the debt-based system was a form of enslavement of the population. But now it's even more obvious, and with the Fed chair coming out and saying stuff like this, who is he trying to fool? Honestly, I think your objective audience, your common citizen, especially American citizen, listens to that and says, Jerome Powell, you are full of it. I mean, you're not even making any sense. It doesn't make any sense what he's saying. So, the Fed and everybody else, they continue to say that, inflation is up a little bit, but it's not permanent, but it's not going down. And so what you're saying is, the prices of things aren't going to go back down to normal. It's up to where it is now, but it's not inflation. Okay, whatever. And I think it's important, especially for young people, to understand that the way the U.S. monetary system works is a problem. Okay, this is the M1 money supply chart. I think they stopped recording some of this in certain ways recently. But it shows a chart. For those of you just listening, you see a steady growth of the money supply, the dollar, billions of dollars. From the chart anyway, shows from about 2014. It's a steady climb. They're talking about 2% inflation. That's sort of the way they've described it. And then after the March 2020 crash, the money supply just spikes. It goes straight up. And this is what happens is the purchasing power of your dollar goes down. So, I have a family member who bought a home in California a few years ago, and they're talking about how, price has gone up, and we've made a 6-figure increase in the price of our home, and they're all excited about it. Great. But you know what that means? It means that your dollar is just worth less than it was. You're purchasing less, or your purchasing power is less than it was. And that's a historical trend as well. I have another chart here that shows purchasing power of the US dollar. This one ends in 2013. It's from 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created, to 2013. And so in 1913, you have $1 as $1. Okay, so based on the purchasing power of the dollar in 1913, in 2013, the purchasing power of a dollar was 5 cents, which means it lost 95% of its purchasing power. That is the problem here. That is a big time issue. Now, there are ways to hedge against this. real estate is one way, and that's why the real estate market has gone up. They're hiding a lot of the inflation in real estate, and of course that's why we have people complaining about companies like BlackRock buying up a whole bunch of properties. And really what you want to do, and this is not financial advice, this is just age-old wisdom when it comes to the people that expose the financial fraud or the fiat fraud. They all suggest to diversify and get into assets that will appreciate in time and preserve, and that's gold and silver, land, real estate, I guess falls under that category. And now, as a new commodity, things like Bitcoin, or at least cryptocurrencies. But of course, can't get away with that too easily. So, in the latest infrastructure bill, Market Insider, crypto firms will report transactions over $10,000 to the IRS under proposed tax push to help fund the U.S. infrastructure plan. I think in the last couple days, the infrastructure plan passed as a bipartisan thing. Both the Republicans and the Democrats came, they agreed. It's like a it says here, $550 billion infrastructure plan. And I think they said about 28 billion of that. Here we go. The tightening regulations could bring in as much as $28 billion to offset parts of the $500 billion infrastructure. And how are they going to do that? They're going to tax crypto holders. And, this was kind of inevitable in some regard, but, it's kind of crazy. So anytime you move crypto, if you're moving it through the institutional side of crypto holders and stuff, or these, crypto firms, then you're going to pay a little extra to Uncle Sam. And that's just another way to extract money out of the cryptocurrency system, which many people are using or have moved into as part of the narrative that, hey, the fiat system is broken. Let's figure out a way to protect our wealth and our hard-earned money. And of course, the Fed is like, nope, we're going to figure out a way to tax that and get some money for infrastructure, for new buildings and new 5G towers and new, AI driven things and all that. So I don't know, folks. It's one of those issues where no matter what you do, they're going to come after you in one way or another. And it's just inevitable. It's just the way the system works. And for those of you who like the US dollar and suggest that we need to stay in the US dollar, good luck to you too. You have the digital yuan in China, and you have all these different currencies. I think cryptocurrencies in general will start to move mainstream even more, but I think the big adoption phase will come when the CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies, especially a central bank digital dollar gets released. That's when a whole bunch of people are going to be like, okay, so the government can just send me money, digital dollars in my wallet just as easily as they can take it away. For example, if you are unvaccinated, you're an unvaxxed citizen, then you pay more taxes or you pay a fee or whatever. They just take it straight out of your wallet. And there's going to be a fork in the road eventually, unless the Lord returns and shuts everything down. But up until that point, and what we're projecting here is that kind of future where companies, businesses, individuals, they're just going to have to decide whether they're going to abide by the system or if they're going to try to use tools like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not some kind of savior thing. It's a tool, and it's a sound money in terms of, especially when you look at the digital infrastructure, the computing era. It is a much more sound money than fiat is. And you'll learn that if you go down that rabbit trail. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that because it's one of those things where again, if you're a young person, they just don't really teach you much about it. And I think it's important to start learning a little bit about it, especially if you're going to be into cryptocurrencies or gold or silver. Why do that? And there are good reasons, and there are good ways to protect your money and your wealth and everything else. So again, not financial advice. I'm just relaying some of the things I've learned, and being someone that didn't have any financial education, didn't know how Wall Street worked for most of my life, still kind of confused about all the details and intricacies, but also learned a lot from the concept of decentralization and what the technology behind Bitcoin did to expose that infrastructure. And maybe that's part of the plan too. Maybe that's part of the way in which, similar to the internet, and how at a certain point, the central intelligence agencies were like, hey, well, we kind of have to open it up to the public if we want to, really take advantage of the power of the internet. We got to make it available to everybody. And maybe that's a similar thing happening here, which I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But again, do your own research, come to your own conclusions. And, I encourage that. I encourage educating yourselves at this point. The schools are not going to teach you. Just as a side note, too, before we get into a Flippy update, I saw this right before I went live, so I thought I'd mention it. DailyMail.co.uk. Look up next week. Saturn will reach its closest point to Earth on Monday, making the ringed planet visible in the night sky. So Saturn will be visible to naked eye as it reaches closest point to Earth on Monday. Earth to move almost directly between Saturn and the Sun in annual opposition. For UK sky watchers, the planet will first appear low on the horizon to southeast. It will then move up until 1 p.m. BST, when it is as bright as it will ever be. You think there aren't some occultists in our world that are getting, rituals prepared for this? I would look out for some pretty intense stuff to happen next week in the world in general, just because of the timing of everything. This is a great opportunity for the occultists to pull off certain things here. So just thought I'd mention that. Let's get into the Flippy update.
Flippy update.
Do you want fries with that?
Now, if you're new to this show, this is Basil's Beat. We talk about Flippy in the Flippy update segment. The name Flippy as a colloquial name for the disembodied robot arms that are taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and flirting with our spouses. And today, story comes from Forbes.com. Fantastic Voyage inspired miniature surgical robot aims to revolutionize abdominal surgery. Okay, all right, kind of creepy. What's the little headliner here? The mini headline. Bill Gates backed Vicarious Surgical, which is set to go public in a SPAC deal, hopes to reach $1 billion in revenue by 2027 as it takes on the Goliath of surgical robots. Oh, of course, a Bill Gates backed surgical company called Vicarious Surgical being compared to the frail David that went up against Goliath. Oh, that's ridiculous. All right, let's see what it says. As a kid, Adam Sachs, co-founder and CEO of Vicarious Surgical, watched the 1966 science fiction movie Fantastic Voyage and was enamored of the premise of microscopic surgeons who performed surgery inside a scientist's brain. Quote, humans are the wrong size to operate on humans, he says. Quote, we're not going to shrink humans down, but we can create avatars of them. We can create little miniature robotic versions. Okay. By the way, I'm seeing Jacqueline J in the chat. Coolio? You must be the similar age as me. I remember Fantastic Voyage, the Coolio song. Coolio was a rapper. A lot of rap references today. Episode 369, too. If you're familiar with Lil Jon. He had a song that had 369 in the lyric. But this reminded me also, there was a movie, oh, what was it? I think it had like, was it Daniel Quaid? Somebody was, somebody famous. Well, I guess all movie people are famous, but there was a movie where they shrink down and they go in. Is that Fantastic Voyage? Hold on, let me just check here. Fantastic Voyage movie. Oh no, that's not it. Okay, hold on. There was a movie back in the 80s, I think, where there is a guy who goes into this like shrunken little machine and goes into the body. Inner Space. Is that it? Inner Space. Oh, that's it. Yes. Inner Space. 1987. There you go. Dennis Quaid, Martin Short. Yes, that's the one. Yeah, I saw that a lot. I remember watching that on TV when I was a kid. But Fantastic Voyage, 1966. The description here from IMDb. Scientist Jan Beans, who knows the secrets of keeping soldiers shrunken for an indefinite period, escapes from behind the Iron Curtain with the help of CIA agent Stephen Boyd. While being transferred, their motorcade is attacked. Yada, yada, yada. So, great. It's a positive CIA message there in that movie. I'll continue on with the story here. That's just what he and his Vicarious Surgical co-founders, Sami Khalifa, the company's chief technology officer, and Dr. Barry Green, its chief medical officer, have spent the past decade doing. They have developed an itty-bitty robot paired with a VR headset for abdominal surgeries that they hope to bring to market in 2023. Its two arms and camera are designed to enter the patient's belly through an incision of less than an inch and operate in all directions once there. Shrinking a surgical robot down is exceptionally difficult, but by doing so, the Vicarious trio hopes to help doctors perform abdominal surgery, starting with hernia operations, faster, safer, and with fewer complications than existing alternatives. It's not exactly the sci-fi stuff of the movie, in which doctors are injected into the patient's bloodstream, but it's futuristic enough that Vicarious has attracted A-list investors, including Bill Gates, Vinod Khosla, Eric Schmidt, former head of Google, and Jerry Yang. It has also received a breakthrough designation from the FDA, the first for a surgical robot, making it eligible for priority review. So, there you go. I mean, I guess this isn't Flippy proper because, with Flippy, we normally talk about the autonomous robots and AI. This is controlled via humans with VR headsets. But, I don't know. It's just one step away from the AI learning enough, getting enough data to be able to operate on its own. And this scene's kind of creepy looking. I don't know. It's kind of alien style to like reverse alien to let this thing into your belly. For those of you listening, it's got these two little eye looking things as lights, and then these two arms that come out with little pinchers. And I mean, it's not really the nicest looking thing. But there you go. And I think Basil will be jealous that he missed this one, this Flippy update. But there you go. This is a Fantastic Voyage inspired miniature surgical robot aims to revolutionize abdominal surgery, funded by none other than Bill Gates. And I actually tweeted. By the way, I'm out of Twitter jail this morning, so yay. But I did tweet out that. What did I say? Speaking of Bill Gates, I said, he has billions of dollars, owns tons of farmland, wants you to stop eating meat, and also drink his own personal purified urine. He wants you to take a jab, block the sun, and now vicariously become a robot arm to perform abdominal surgeries. And That's kind of crazy too, to call it vicarious surgical or surgery or whatever it's called. I don't know. The whole idea of vicariously wanting to do it, I don't know. Weird, creepy, all those words to describe this type of thing. And yes, again, for those of you watching or listening, Basil is out today, but you can be hypnotized by his time-warped eyeballs or googly eyes that are opening and closing pupils, getting smaller and dilating. I don't know. He's tripping out, so we're just going to move on here. Basil, anything to say about that?
Interesting.
Oh, okay. Great. Fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. We have a couple 33 updates.
33 is the number of completion of the Great War.
And before I get into the 33 updates, I did want to briefly do kind of an overview of what the 33 represents or what it entails. And, because we've done explanations of it before, but I think it's good to explain it every once in a while, just for new listeners if they don't know, because we did get a comment, 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, somebody was like, don't listen to these guys, they're Freemasons. And the logic was, you guys found 33, you signal to the elite. It was like, oh, well, I guess the joke went over your head a little bit there, because we're not promoting the number 33, but we are exposing the concept of 33 and what it is. And, it's interesting because there's a negative connotation of the number 33 in the Bible compared to the occult and the esoteric philosophies, which have a positive view of the number 33. And for example, Manly P. Hall, in his book, Secret Teachings of All Ages, said this, quote, alchemy is a threefold art. Its mystery well symbolized by a triangle. Its symbol is 3 times 3 elements or processes in 3 worlds or spheres. The 3 times 3 is part of the mystery of the 33rd degree of Freemasonry. For 33 is 3 times 3, which is 9, the number of esoteric man, and the number of emanations from the root of the divine tree. It is the number of worlds nourished by the 4 rivers that pour out of the divine mouth as the verbum fiat. Beneath the so-called symbolism of alchemy is concealed a magnificent concept, for this ridiculed and despised craft still preserves intact the triple key to the gates of eternal life. Realizing, therefore, that alchemy is a mystery in 3 worlds, the divine, the human, and the elemental, it can easily be appreciated why the sages and philosophers created and evolved an intricate allegory to conceal their wisdom. So there you go. The number 33 is a number that conceals the wisdom of the elite. But in the Bible, little different relationship to the number there in certain ways. Revelation 12, then another sign appeared in heaven, a huge red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 royal crowns on his head. His tail swept a third of the stars, 33%, 33.333333%, from the sky, tossing them to the earth. And during judgment, Revelation 8 talks about how during the first 4 trumpets, you have a third of the earth burning up, a third of the trees, and a third of the grass burning up, a third of the sea turning to blood, a third of the living creatures in the sea dying. Let's see what else. A third of the rivers. Okay, well, what is this? 30 angels, and the great star burning like a torch fell from heaven and landed on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. That's wormwood, by the way. A third of the waters turned bitter, and a third of the sun and moon and stars were also struck, and a third of the stars were darkened. A third of the day was without light, and a third of the night as well. So there you go. There's obviously an element of judgment when it comes to 33, or at least a third, 33.33, 33% when it comes to that. So keeping that in mind, we track this 33 number because it seems to be used quite a bit by the elite in articles and certain situations to signal certain things, is all we can really say. And the first article here, a lot of people shared this with me. NPR.org, gunmaker offers Sandy Hook families $33 million. Here's what they may be considering. And, we don't have to read the whole story here. After years-long legal battle with the maker of the rifle used in the Sandy Hook Elementary School, some of the victims' families are deliberating over a $33 million settlement offer from Remington Arms. The offer presented by the now bankrupt gunmakers in court documents on Tuesday comes just a day after a judge denied the company's request to dismiss the lawsuit. However, the sum falls short of what families have previously said they expected. Court documents earlier this year, they argued that wrongful death settlements could reach $225 million, and expected total punitive claims could exceed $1 billion. $1 billion? Go ahead, just print that. Print that, Biden. Make that money printer go burr. So, interesting. It's almost like the gun makers here, Remington Arms, is signaling to the elite, like, this is all we have left. We're bankrupt, but here's $33 million. Please, just let us off the hook. Sandy Hook. Yeah, okay. All right, well, interesting. Interesting number as always. I'm sure they did that to perhaps, again, appeal to certain tiers of society to try to get off here. But the other one is also very interesting. I think this other story is a little more interesting. This is Union County Daily Digital. And the headline, FCC approves wireless licenses for 33 smart mobility corridor / beta district. So this is very interesting. The 33 smart mobility corridors connected vehicle environment is taking another step forward with approval from the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. The FCC approved a license for short-range wireless vehicle to infrastructure, V2I, technology installed along the corridor, which can now be used for connected and automated vehicle testing and research. The license allows 33 smart mobility projects, including Connected Dublin, Connected Marysville, Drive Ohio initiatives, and names a few other companies here. The Northwest 33 Council of Governments. The Northwest 33 Council of Governments, the NW33COG, oversees the district and the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor project. The COG received $5.9 million, received a $5.9 million U.S. Department of Transportation grant to test connected vehicles and roadside infrastructure and share lessons learned with policymakers and the global transportation industry. So I think they don't mention it here, but this has to be 5G, because they're talking about short range, and most of 5G operates on these short wave Wi-Fi systems or wireless systems. And instead of like one giant tower doing everything, we've seen all the little pods that have to be set up in certain distances from each other to relay the signals and to keep connectivity strong, So I think that's what this is, but very interesting that there is a 33 Smart Mobility project, and it's overseen by the Northwest 33 Council of Governments. I don't know. It doesn't get much more blatant than that, if you ask me. But what do I know? I'm just a podcaster. So, all right. Moving on here. We're going to get into some WACCINE stuff.
WACCINE.
And first up here, we are going to play this Fauci montage. This was going around. It's worth sharing. It is Dr. Anthony Fauci's flip-flop of everything from masks to social distancing to even the vaccine in some regard. But it's interesting to see the side-by-side and the flip-flop of Fauci over the last year here.
People should not be walking around with masks. Let me just state for the record that masks are not theater. Wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and masks are protective. And it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is.
There has not been any.
I need that mute button. I need to get that. And sorry, pause it on creepy Zuckerberg face there. All right, let's move back a little bit.
Not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is.
There has not been any indication that putting a mask on and wearing a mask for a considerable period of time has any deleterious effects.
There are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
And can you get some schmutz sort of staying inside there?
Of course.
You do not need to wear a mask indoors if, in fact, you've been vaccinated. Good that you're vaccinated, but in a situation where you have people indoors, particularly crowded, you should wear a mask.
So even if you are vaccinated, you should wear a mask. If, in fact, you are vaccinated, fully vaccinated, you are protected, and you do not need to wear a mask outdoors or indoors. When the children go out into the community, you want them to continue to wear masks.
You know, if you look at children outside, particularly when they're with the family, walking down the street, playing a game or what have you, don't have to wear a mask.
The pediatric, the Academy of Pediatric actually makes that recommendation that children should be wearing masks from 2 years old onward.
And you're asking now, if your child is a member of your household, can you walk outdoors with your child without a mask? According to that chart, the answer is yes.
But the child can't, not to beat it to death.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Because now the CDC says, I think I've got this right. 1 mask is better than 0 masks. 2 masks is better than 1 mask. But you don't have to have double masks. Is that right? I mean,
it became clear that cloth coverings that you didn't have to buy in a store, that you could make yourself, were adequate.
And then you want it to fit better. So one of the ways you could do it, if you would like to, is put a cloth mask over, which actually here and here and here, where you could get leakage in, is much better contained.
are you a double masker, Dr. Fauci? It looked like you are.
So there you go. The flip-flop of Fauci. And there's a lot of people now. I'm seeing this all over the internet here and social media and everything, where even people who wouldn't be considered, conspiracy theorist or fringe or whatever, those people are starting to come out and say, hey, what's going on here? Why? The only people that are still defending the Fauci flippening, the flip-flop, are people that are really, really defending science. And they're like, science evolves. It's like, not to this degree. It doesn't evolve back and forth. And we've shown over the many episodes that we've done since last year when everything started to lock down, we showed the New England Journal of Medicine directly saying that masks are a kind of what was the word? Not signaling. It was, and this was for nurses and medical practitioners, a talisman. It's not that they work for sure in keeping out or preventing spread of any kind of disease. It's just a talisman. It makes people feel better, makes them feel protected. And that was the New England Journal of Medicine. And once some people pointed it out, they made a correction or like a new statement regarding it, saying like, oh, we still recommend masks, but they didn't address the part where they said it's a talisman for medical practitioners. If it's a talisman for medical practitioners, what is it for the general public, if not some kind of muzzle? I'm just asking questions. Let's see. What else here regarding Fauci? Here's what I think. Fauci should listen to his own advice.
You do not know what you are talking about.
Feels weird to laugh by myself when I watch this. or do this. What am I doing? Watching, doing. Okay, so let's move on here. What else do I have? Oh, this is Biden. I have a clip here of Biden. He was asked about mandatory vaccinations. And here's what he said.
Well, I'd like to see them continue to move in that direction. And that's why I pointed out. I had asked the Justice Department to determine whether they're able to do that legally. And they can. Local communities can do that. Local businesses can do that. It's still a question whether the federal government can mandate the whole country. I don't know that yet.
He doesn't know for sure if the federal government can mandate vaccines legally or not. This is not good, folks. The direction this is moving is not good. And actually, there's a Reason.com article that I linked in the show notes in the what's the section called? I always forget. Additional stories section, but I'll mention it here. Biden asks DOJ for opinion about federal vaccine mandate, and this author here, Josh Blackman, responded. He had a few immediate reactions. He said, quote, "First, is there sufficient statutory authority to impose such a mandate? Of course, Congress could enact a new statute, but Congress doesn't actually legislate anymore." It says it's more likely that the president relies on some extant authority, like the CDC. And this is part of the problem with all of this. This entire year, this has been the issue. That these unelected officials, medical officials, CDC, WHO, are just stepping in and saying things, and everybody is just abiding. Nobody's asking questions. Nobody's pushing back. And I think that's more of the issue here, beyond just, hey, the science is this idea that these unelected officials are dictating what happens worldwide. And yes, there are local businesses, local health officials that can definitely influence the way their local communities respond, but I don't know. I don't think the federal government needs to mandate anything because it's already sort of implied based on the chain of command from these world institutions through the federal government. Maybe not legally, but socially, they're definitely pressuring everybody, and then everybody falls in line. Second, Jacobson versus Massachusetts does not fully resolve the issue. The case concerned the state's general police power. The federal government lacks a generalized police power. Rather, it has enumerated powers. What enumerated power would give the executive branch the ability to forcibly jab millions of Americans with a needle, perhaps in the absence of clear statutory authority? There is case law about a federal draft, though that authority is closely tied to the federal war power. I thought we were done arguing about mandates with California versus Texas. Alas, we are stuck in a loop. Okay. Third, DOJ should be careful how it defines mandate. In Jacobson, there was no forcible mandate to be vaccinated. People could instead choose to pay a $5 fine or get jabbed. Roughly $150 in present day value. I told you guys, inflation. The $5 fine back then is equivalent to a $150 fine today. But you know what? There's a part of me that's like, hey, if you need us to pay $150 to maintain our physical, not our immunity. What's the word I'm looking for? Freedom, I guess. The freedom of our autonomy. That's the word. Our physical autonomy. Then sure, $150 over who knows what kind of physical damage or generational damage that can be caused. I'm okay with that to some degree. Fourth, from a policy perspective, this idea strikes me as counterproductive. The worst way to encourage people to get a shot is to mandate it. People will resist and engage in civil disobedience. I think there is a good reason why most nations around the world have not imposed forcible mandates. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, forcible mandates. In many ways, they have, though. You know, they haven't forced a jab directly. Certain businesses have. You know, it's like take it or be fired. But you still have that escape hatch. I can quit my job. You know, and I know it's not feasible for everybody, but there's that option. And but they've done everything else, socially, economically, and I think that'll get worse. Now, if OLC never publishes this opinion, we can presume the answer is, quote, no, you cannot impose a nationwide vaccine mandate. I'm grateful Biden slipped here. So there you go. I mean, you know, I'm not a legal expert in any regard, especially when it comes to these issues. But as far as I can understand, the federal government does not have the power to really federally mandate a vaccine for everybody in the country, let alone the world. So something to keep in mind here. But, you know, they don't need, the federal government doesn't need to mandate and force everybody. There's enough pressure coming from mainstream media. And that's where this first story, or I guess this is like the first official story under WACCINE, comes from New York Times. CDC internal report calls Delta variant as contagious as chickenpox. So scary. Let's see what they say here. And by the way, this comes at the heels of last month. They were saying, oh yes, Delta variant is definitely more transmissible, but it's not as harsh. Now they're changing their tune on that. Another flip-flop. It says, the Delta variant is much more contagious, more likely to break through protections afforded by the vaccines, and may cause more severe disease than all other known versions of the virus, according to an internal presentation circulated within the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That is our source. An internal presentation circulated by the CDC. Okay. You know, touching back to the Bitcoin thing real quick. And the reason why somebody on social media on Twitter last couple days was saying that, or they were asking the question, why are so many Bitcoiners anti-vaxxers? And they were kind of appalled because there's a lot of Bitcoiners out there that are like, heck no, I'm not taking the jab. And why are so many Bitcoiners anti-vaxxers, or, you know, labeled anti-vaxxers? And here's why. There is a idiom when it comes to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And that idiom is don't trust, verify. Okay? Don't trust, verify. What that means is don't trust a person, an institution, a government. You don't need to trust them. Verify it. The transactions are on the blockchain and everyone can see it. So in a certain way, there is a public audit of any claims made. So let's say, I don't know, some big bank or something, JP Morgan, who just opened up crypto buying to the public. JP Morgan says, hey, we bought $10 million worth of Bitcoin. Well, they can say that and we can trust them saying that. But what's more important for the public is if they can verify it, and if they can see, oh, hey, look, the JP Morgan public Bitcoin wallet or public key, you can see that, yes, they have purchased $10 million worth of Bitcoin. You can verify it as a public. Okay? So that's the saying. So don't trust, verify. And along those sentiments, what's happening now, and the reason why so many Bitcoiners are anti-vaxxers is because when it comes to the vaccine and the virus and the pandemic and everything else, it's the complete opposite. It's no need to verify, just trust us. What these guys are saying, the CDC and Fauci's and the governments, they're all just saying, just trust us. You don't need to verify any of. In fact, don't even try to verify. You're going to find yourselves in a rabbit hole of documents that are, you know, not peer reviewed, and internal documents, internal presentations that are not public. What was Dr. Gupta in the last episode said on a CNN interview about the 99% or 97%, whatever, of people dying of COVID or unvaccinated. He said that that data is based on unpublished data, or that info is based on published data. So yeah, don't verify anything we're saying here. Just trust us. Again, that's the correlation there. But I continue. Dr. Rochelle P. Walensky, the director of Doom, acknowledged on Tuesday that vaccinated people with so-called breakthrough infections of the Delta variant carry just as much virus in the nose and throat as unvaccinated people and may spread it just as readily, if less often. Okay, that's weird. She didn't want to say more often, so they're like, oh, well, less often, but it can still happen. And by the way, if you go listen to the most recent No Agenda show, it's kind of a supplement to our show. They were talking, Adam and John over there were talking about how the Delta variant, there are no tests, or at least it's very obscure, the tests that are verifying the Delta variant. You know, it's very limited, the number of lab confirmed tests of the Delta variant. They're just, you know, making assumptions. Oh, 1 out of 100 tests were, as an example, this isn't the actual thing, but 1 out of 100 tests from this region was a Delta variant. Therefore, this entire region must be covered in Delta variant. That's kind of the logic that they're using. Again, don't trust, or do trust, don't verify, according to these leaders here. But the internal document lays out a broader and even grimmer view of the variant. The Delta variant is more transmissible than the viruses that cause MERS, SARS, Ebola, the common cold, the seasonal flu, and smallpox, and it is as contagious as chickenpox, according to the document, a copy which was obtained by the New York Times. You know, the New York Times authority getting a copy of the unpublished internal document. Again, trust us. The immediate next step for the agency is to, quote, acknowledge the war has changed, the document said. Its contents were first reported by the Washington Post on Thursday evening. The document's tone reflects alarm among CDC scientists about Delta's spread across the country, said a federal official who has seen the research described in the document. The agency is expected to publish additional data on the variant on Friday. Okay, so are we going to see that? Let me just check the CDC.gov website. Let's see if there's anything published on that. Delta variant. Let me do a quick search. Delta, about the virus, blah, blah, blah. Delta funded, Delta project from 2013. Journals. Let's see if there's anything there. Outbreak associated with gymnastics facility. Delta virus 2016 to 2019. That's weird. I don't see anything in the immediate here, but I'm sure they'll share it at some point. There were 71,000 new cases per day on average in the U.S. as of Thursday. The new data suggests that vaccinated people are spreading the virus and contributing to those numbers, although probably to a far lesser degree than the unvaccinated. Okay. You know, I've been, not just me and Basil, other people that have been looking at this as objectively as possible, have been ranting and raving about demonizing the unvaccinated, making the word or title unvaccinated synonymous with terrorist. And it's because of this type of verbiage. Okay, I mean, Walensky admitted that you're just as likely to spread the virus if you're vaccinated as those unvaccinated. Then why do they keep suggesting, the new data suggests, that vaccinated people are spreading the virus and contributing to the other, although probably a far less degree than the unvaccinated? I mean, come on, folks. Am I the only one that's kind of like, I know I'm not the only one. I think a lot of people are like, what is going on here? I think we know what's going on. Dr. Walensky has called transmission by vaccinated people are rare events, but other scientists have suggested it may be more common than once thought. Oh, okay. All right. The agency's new masking guidelines for vaccinated people introduced on Tuesday were based on the information presented in the document. Oh, this mysterious document that nobody has seen yet except the New York Times and Washington Post, declaring all kinds of health measures across the country. The CDC recommends that vaccinated people wear masks indoors in public settings in communities with high transmission of the virus. But the internal document hints that even the recommendation may not go far enough. Quote, given higher transmissibility and current vaccine coverage, universal masking is essential. You know, it's never about the vaccine. It was never about the virus. It was always about compliance. You know, it's always about how we can get everybody to comply and muzzle everybody. The agency's data suggests that people with weak immune systems should wear masks even in places that do not have high transmission of the virus. This is like the closest thing they've said to like, hey, here's how you can strengthen your immune system. So should vaccinated Americans who are in contact with young children, older adults, or otherwise vulnerable people. There are roughly 35,000 symptomatic infections per week among the 162 million vaccinated Americans, according to data collected by the CDC as of July 24th that was cited in the internal presentation. But the agency does not track all mild or asymptomatic infections, so the actual incidence may be higher. Okay. There you go, folks. That they're kind of admitting that, okay, yeah, there's a certain amount of vaccinated people that are spreading the virus, but this internal presentation does not track mild or asymptomatic infections. So they can make the conjecture. You know, it's almost like they're conveniently leaving out certain variables so they can pump out the narrative that they want. You know, because if we're going to bow down to science, why aren't we covering all the bases before they release it? Well, we know why. Infection with the Delta variant produces virus amounts in the airways that are tenfold higher than what is seen in people infected with the Alpha variant, which is also highly contagious, the document noted. The amount of virus in a person infected with Delta is 1,000-fold more than what is seen in people infected with the original version of the virus, according to the recent study. Oh my goodness. So even if you're vaccinated, if you get the virus, the Delta variant, you're 1,000-fold more what is this? Virus in person infected is a Delta, 1,000-fold more than what is seen in people infected. Okay, so you have 1,000-fold more virus. Okay. At a certain point, this is just like complete poop. This is just bull poop. That's all I can say. The CDC document relies on data from multiple studies, including the analysis of a recent outbreak in Provincetown, Massachusetts, which began after the town's 4th of July festivities. By Thursday, that cluster had grown to 882 cases. About 74% were vaccinated, local health officials have said. Okay, we're getting some numbers here and some sources of the study. One place that they mention so far. Provincetown, Massachusetts, and 822 cases, less than 1,000 cases to justify masking up and locking back down and all that kind of stuff. Detailed analysis of the spread of cases showed that people infected with Delta carry enormous amounts of virus in their nose and throat, regardless of vaccination status, according to the CDC document. Interesting how as this story goes on, it goes from like less likely to even the vaccinated carry enormous amounts of virus in their nose and throat. Oh.
We're all gonna die.
Quote, this is one of the most impressive examples of citizen science I have seen. That's Celine Gounder, the infectious disease specialist at Bellevue Hospital in New York. The people involved in the Provincetown outbreak were meticulous in making lists of their contacts and exposures. Infection Infection with the Delta variant may be more likely to lead to severe illness, the document noted. Studies from Canada and Scotland found that people infected with the variant are more likely to be hospitalized, while research in Singapore indicated that they are more likely to require oxygen. Still, the CDC's figures show that the vaccines are highly effective in preventing serious illness, hospitalization, and death in vaccinated people, experts say. Okay. So, you won't die, and you may not go to the hospital, but still mask up because you have enormous 1,000 times more virus in you than the original strain. Quote, overall, Delta is the troubling variant we already knew it was, said John Moore, a virologist at Weill Cornell Medicine in New York. Quote, but the sky isn't falling and vaccination still protects strongly against the worst outcomes, of course. Make sure to keep getting your jab, folks, no matter what, even though you can still spread the virus. This, I really hope people share this story with friends and family who are skeptical about your worldview. And you can say, look, anybody who says in the mainstream or politicians or whatever that you are getting the vaccine so that you're protecting yourselves from your neighbors, it's a thing to do. Remember, Kamala Harris came out, oh, it's biblical because, you love thy neighbor. You're protecting them by getting vaccinated. All hogwash, according to their own little thing here about how much it can spread even if you're vaccinated. So it's all just nonsense. Makes me angry. All right. So there's your New York Times article. CDC internal report calls Delta variant as contagious as chickenpox. It's a mysterious internal document. Sources, what is it? Massachusetts, a town in Massachusetts, a town in, what was it? Ireland? Or let me just verify that real quick. Let me scroll here. Where'd it go? Yes, the July 4th. Canada and Scotland. That's what it was. Canada, Scotland, and Singapore. That's it. That's going to determine all the rest of the world. Not considering any of the variables there. Okay. Let me just briefly take this opportunity here to mention the reason why I called the episode I Spy Sci Op, and I used, instead of a psychological operation, it's scientific or scientism operation, is because we are seeing very much this unfolding, this externalization of a scientific dictatorship. And so much of it is based on this, not just a totalitarian mindset, but a lot of it has to do with population control, population reduction. And there's a little segment from a book that was written by Paul and Philip Collins. They've kind of fallen out of favor with certain peers amongst the fringe Christian conspiracy-minded folk, or whatever you want to call it. I first heard about this book from Derek and Sharon Gilbert back in like 2009 or 2010 when they were interviewed on A View from the Bunker or PID Radio. I can't remember which one, but this is a while ago. And the book was published in 2005 or 2006. And in the book, there's a section called Darwinism Dismantled. And I'm just going to read a little bit here about some philosophical perspectives of those that are out there now, the CDCs, the Faucis, and the Bill Gateses of the world. And it says here, one of the major influences on Darwin was Thomas Malthus, an Anglican clergyman who had received the blessing of French deist Jean-Jacques Rousseau and radical empiricist David Hume. Malthus authored Essay on the Principle of Population, a treatise premised upon the thesis, quote, population, when unchecked, increases in a geometrical ratio. Subsistence increases only in an arithmetic ratio. Although Malthus articulated his observation in succinct mathematical equations, the labyrinth and complex machinations comprising the natural order typically defies such overly simplistic reductionism. Nonetheless, Malthus concluded that society should adopt certain social policies to prevent the human population from growing disproportionately larger than the food supply. Malthus's genocidal policies specifically targeted the poor. For instance, one of his proposals suggested the implementation of the following measures, and this is from Malthus's book. Quote, instead of recommending cleanliness to the poor, we should encourage contrary habits. Poop on the street, anybody? In our towns, we should make the streets narrower, crowd more people into the houses, and court the return of the plague. Sound familiar? In the country, we should build our villages near stagnant pools and particularly encourage settlement in all marshy and unwholesome situations. Really? Seriously? But above all, we should reprobate specific remedies for ravaging diseases. Sound familiar? And those benevolent, but much mistaken men who have thought they were doing a service to mankind by projecting schemes for the total extirpation of particular disorders. And back to Paul and Philip Collins here. Through the promotion of hygienically unsound practices among impoverished populations, Malthus believed that the undesirable elements of the human herd could be naturally culled by various maladies. I think this is partially what's going on with the elderly and with the poor. I continue here. Yet, amongst one of Malthus's most shocking proposals... Oh, I skipped the sentence. The spread of disease could be further assisted through discriminative vaccination and zoning programs. Again, people that have studied the history of eugenics sees what's happening now, and they're very alarmed. They're like, hey, this is exactly what so many eugenicists and population control people have publicly published over the last century or more. Why are we rolling it out? Why are we abiding or adhering to those philosophies with these policies? Yet amongst one of Malthus's most shocking proposals was his suggestion concerning children. Quote, we are bound in justice and honor formally to disclaim the right of the poor to support. To this end, I should propose a regulation be made declaring that no child born should be ever entitled to parish assistance. The illegitimate infant is, comparatively speaking, of little value to society, as others will immediately supply its places. All children beyond what would be required to keep up the population to this desired level must necessarily perish, unless room be made for them by the deaths of grown persons. This is pretty disturbing and sick, if you ask me. And we're talking about a very spiritually deprived, conscience seared as with a hot iron, to suggest that, oh my gosh, to cull populations, let's kill the poor, let's make sure that, you know, we keep remedies from diseases from the public, you know. You know, what's happening is almost more sinister, because they're like, hey, let's roll out a vaccine. It might kill even more of the older people, and the vaccine doesn't do much other than to prevent you from severe illness. You can still spread it everywhere. So I just wanted to quote that as kind of a reference or worldview to understand kind of what's rolling out, the spirit behind it, if you will. And you know, I wanted to include some scripture in today's episode, especially, you know, as I don't have Basil to kind of bounce off of today. So turning to the scripture is always a good plan. I think we should do more of it, actually, in general. But what kind of biblical stuff is in there to apply to a vaccine hesitant person, you know, or resistant type of person? I found a few. So here's Psalm 41, and maybe somebody has already covered this, but Psalm 41, verse 3, the Lord will sustain him on his bed of illness and restore him from his bed of sickness. The Lord will, not vaccines. You know, some people can argue maybe, you know, there's like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. Those are tools. but ultimately the Lord will heal you, which many people have recovered from COVID-19. More people than have died. Another one from Psalms chapter 118, verse 8. It's better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man. Very good, right? Fauci? Do we trust you, Fauci?
Science is truth.
Okay. All right, Fauci. It says here it's better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust any man, right?
You do not know what you are talking about.
Okay, well, sorry, Fauci. Another one here from Mark chapter 5, verses 24 through 29. So Jesus went with him, and a large crowd followed and pressed around him. And a woman was there who had suffered from bleeding for 12 years. She had borne much agony under the care of many physicians, and had spent all she had, but to no avail. Instead, her condition had only grown worse. Imagine that. This lady spent her life savings with many physicians to try to prevent or figure out what's going on. To no avail. It made it worse. I think maybe something like that is happening today, folks, with people that have some kind of ailment, spending a lot of money, a lot of time with physicians, doctors, and this is not anything against physicians and doctors. I think a lot of them are trying to help people or are helping people. They do, for the most part. But I think when it comes to compliance to the system, it's very easy for people that are doctors and stuff to just fall in line. And there are definitely many across the world who are seeing what's happening and are rebelling against it, and they're being silenced. So, yes, this is not an indictment against physicians or anything like that, but in this case, it's kind of a good example. And I think this also speaks to the transhumanist agenda, how they're trying to solve everything through money and physicians and stuff like that. Not just physicians, but science in general. The experts. I continue on here, verse 27. When the woman heard about Jesus, she came up through the crowd behind him and touched his cloak, where she kept saying, "If only I touch his garment, I will be healed." Immediately, her bleeding stopped, and she sensed in her body that she was healed of her affliction. And ultimately, it's just an important thing to point out here that Jesus is healing, and this can apply both to the literal in terms of a physical, but also spiritually in the eternal sense. There's only one true healer, and it's not Dr. Fauci, and it's not a vaccine. Okay, moving on. 1 Corinthians 3, verses 16. Do you not know that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. For God's temple is holy, and you are that temple. I know these are familiar passages, but just kind of adding my little commentary here. This brings me a little bit of comfort, because despite the fact that they're rolling this out and they're enforcing and locking down and get your jab and jab and
vaccination,
all that propaganda. If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. There is judgment. There's judgment coming for these people, and then it just brings me comfort. As much as we're trying to do here on shows like Canary Cry News Talk and expose the lies, or at least parse out what's true, what's not, and discuss these issues and think critically about what's happening in the world, can ultimately rely on God to be the ultimate judge here. So, good stuff there. That was a good one. Matthew 9, I have one more here. Verse 12 and 13. On hearing this, Jesus said, quote, quote, I just see the quotations, I say quote, but on hearing this, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." Of course, it's talking about Jesus, what Jesus is doing, calling out to the sinners, but it's a good detail there. It's not the healthy who need a doctor. And it's funny because this example has been used quite a bit, and like, oh, the people who need Jesus are the sinners of the world, and if you're saved, then you already have Jesus, so that's not who Jesus is calling upon here. But in this analogy is this very interesting aspect. You apply it to what's happening now. It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. What just happened in the last 6 months? A bunch of healthy people needed basically a doctor, a vaccine needed. I put needed in air quotes here, but a bunch of healthy people went and got vaccinated. It's just crazy to me that there are scriptures, especially like Christians that are really pushing for the vaccine. And I guess some people had to get it for jobs or whatever. And I'm not saying if you get it, you're going to die or you're sold your soul or anything like that. And I've mentioned this again and again. The technology behind the vaccine, questionable. Long-term effects, questionable. Certainly skeptical of a lot of that. But more than any of that stuff is the philosophical nature of what's happening and the authoritarian moves by government and by the medical establishment and everything like that. That's where I see more of an issue here, rather than just the technology of the jab itself. So just to clarify, because I know people get caught up in the various things that could be within the vaccine, and those things are important to look at. I'm not saying don't look at it, but just keep in mind that it's really the overall philosophical approach, the worldview that's being projected, the enforcement, the social engineering, and all the rest of it. That's a lot more troubling than the technology itself. So anyway, those are just some scriptures. I thought I'd interject while I talk about this. And I see En-Pnuemati in the chat here, and I appreciate that because I had... hold on, what happened to my stuff here? I did... Oh, okay, CC. Oh, yes. Okay, so I got an email from En-Pnuemati. He's kind of one of our biologists, many people in medicine that listen to the show and contribute every once in a while to correct us if we go too overboard with something, or help us explain certain things a little better or whatever it is. So En-Pnuemati sent us a note here, and he said, came across this while scanning the alt news sites, and this is Medscape.com. And he said, vax side effects being described by vaxxed doctors. Only medical professionals can comment on this site. And as of this morning, almost 1,000 comments, assuming no dupes, that is 1,000 injections with effects just among the doctors who self-commented on this site. And it seems they correctly tie their new health ailments to the vax, not coincidence. And yeah, there's 592 comments here on this page. And I can't log in here, but the basic thing is, how concerned are you about adverse reactions related to the vaccines? And again, I guess you have to be a medical practitioner or a doctor to join this and comment here. And it's just one after another of stuff that people have, I vomited, I did this. Tried to highlight some stuff here. And there are certain people that are kind of towing the line, like, we're not saying for sure that it was the thing, but certainly, I had this effect afterwards and it's lingered. And I couldn't go through all of it here, but this person says, had second Moderna vaccine on April 6th. Neurological problems began immediately, but did not associate them with the vaccine. Nighttime spastic jerking went on only allowing at most 2 hours of sleep. Speech issues, cognitive problems made work impossible, resulting in medical leave of absence. Neuropathy in feet, burning sensations in both feet and lips. 3 months later, the seizure medication not helping. Still not back to work. Worst thing I've ever endured. Would not wish side effects on anyone. Sorry for everyone else's suffering. That is pretty intense for a doctor to be just coming out and commenting and saying. They actually said more. Forgot to add that I developed extreme depression. Like there's a constant darkness around me. Something I have never experienced before. And this person says, God bless each of you. So maybe they're a Christian there. Let's see. I thought I had highlighted stuff. Maybe they disappeared here. But it just goes on and on and on here with all these doctors mentioning issues like that. Pain, different neurological issues. And people that are like, hey, I'm still pro-vax. Where's the one? I want to find that one. Still pro. Oh gosh. Sorry, I got to do this on the fly here. Let me see. Maybe the word anti. No. No. Antibodies. Shoot. I'm not going to be able to find it. That's a bummer because this person was basically saying that, I'm still saying get your jab, but just, be careful and if anything happens, at least you did it for the good of humanity or something like that. So, yeah, it's just another one of these sources where you can look at and say, hey, there's a lot more people affected by this than you'd think. So, all right. Thank you for that, En-Pnuemati. Appreciate it and appreciate the resources there. Next, I'm going to move on here. Speaking of psychological operations, this is RevCycleIntelligence.com. Can behavioral science reduce healthcare worker vaccine hesitancy? Targeted email reminders driven by behavioral science may be effective at reducing healthcare worker vaccine hesitancy, new research shows. Now, first off, they're basically admitting here that there is a vaccine hesitancy problem amongst healthcare workers. Not a good look. Just got to say. Just briefly, I won't read the whole thing here. Individually addressed email reminders driven by behavioral science may be effective at reducing healthcare workers' vaccine hesitancy. According to a research letter published in JAMA Network Open, the emails more than doubled COVID-19 vaccine registration compared to workers who did not receive an email. Interesting. It just says that it doubled vaccine registration. I don't know that it's actually tracking people that got vaccinated. Researchers from the Behavioral Insights team at Geisinger Health Systems Steele Institute for Health Innovation targeted over 9,600 employees of a large Pennsylvania health system who had not scheduled their vaccination after the health system had sent mass emails to employees over the past 5 weeks. The remaining unvaccinated employees were split into 3 groups: a delayed control group, a social norm group, and a reframing risk group. Both the social norm and reframing risk groups received emails explaining that vaccine eligibility will soon be expanded beyond healthcare workers and appointments will be harder to obtain. Both emails also asked employees to either schedule an appointment through a hyperlink in the email or fill out an online form explaining their reasoning behind not getting the vaccine. Wow, they're really using the marketing tactics. I'm not an email marketing expert, but I've read certain a good handful of articles and stuff on how to email market and things of that nature. And some of it is like create scarcity, create what's the other word? Urgency, stuff like that. So it's just funny how they're using the same tactics. There's the appointments will be harder to obtain later. Do it now. It's just kind of funny. The social norm group received an email that point out that many U.S. residents and fellow healthcare employees chose to get vaccinated. The reframing risks group received an email that explained the risks of contracting COVID-19 compared to the proven effectiveness and lower risks relating to the vaccine. That group's going to be harder to convince, especially when the CDC comes out and said, you could be vaccinated, still get it, still spread it. I don't think we need to keep going here. I think you get the idea. Let me see if there's anything at the end here. Vaccine hesitancy among healthcare workers remains high, and some health systems are turning to vaccine mandates to reach reluctant healthcare workers. AMA recently announced its support for COVID-19 vaccine mandates for healthcare workers, a sentiment echoed by dozens of other healthcare organizations. But some leaders are concerned about exacerbating existing hospital staffing shortages. Texas-based health system Houston Methodist faced backlash after enforcing a vaccine mandate. Over 150 employees were fired or resigned after refusing vaccination. Remember that a few months ago? Or weeks ago, I guess. Yeah, so there you go. A problem when your healthcare workers themselves are like, no, not going to get it, and doing everything they can. Email campaigns targeting you to get the jab now. All right, moving on here. Business Insider, mirrored by MSN.com. Israel will roll out a booster dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine to older people, citing a drop in protection against severe disease driven by Delta variant. Oh boy, I'll just read the bullet points. Israel will begin offering booster shots of Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine this weekend. The vaccine's protection against severe illness waned over time from 97% to 81%, officials said. With the rise of the Delta variant, many countries are considering booster doses. You know what that means. More money! Cha-ching for Pfizer. Let me see here. Well, it's pretty short. Is there more? Yeah. I don't need to read this. I think you guys get the idea. The New York drug-making giant... the New York drug-making giant, Pfizer that is, posted new detailed results from its clinical trial that enrolled more than 40,000 volunteers. Longer-term follow-up showed the vaccine's ability to prevent symptomatic COVID-19 cases, regardless of severity, dipped to 84% starting 4 months after the second dose, compared to 96% efficacy in the first 2 months. The vaccine's overall efficacy against severe disease in that study was 97%, with 30 cases occurring among people who received placebo shots, and 1 case in a person who got the vaccine. Efficacy against severe disease, with 30 cases occurring amongst those who received placebo shots. Okay. Kind of interesting. So, somebody did send me a clip, and I think No Agenda covered it, so I won't necessarily cover it here, but basically, I think it was the UK. Somebody in the UK came out and said that both the vaccinated and the people that received the vaccine in trial and those who received placebos will also be considered vaccinated. So, just as a reminder, there was that scientific paper we had traced a few episodes ago that allegedly reported 99% of people getting vaccinated or people dying from COVID were unvaccinated. And in that study, it said that, what was it? I'm trying to find it on my Twitter link here because I've shared it on Twitter a few days ago. They basically said that people that got COVID within 14 days after the second shot were labeled unvaccinated. So let me get this straight. We have people who test positive for COVID-19 within 14 days after the second shot are labeled unvaccinated. But for people who participated in the trial, if you received a placebo, you are considered vaccinated. How does that make any sense? It doesn't. I don't think it's supposed to. I think it's supposed to confuse everybody. Okay, moving on here. We got Israel here. Oh, this one was interesting too. This is APnews.com. CDC encourages use of new tests that detect both COVID-19 and the flu. Claim the CDC and prevention revoked emergency use authorization for coronavirus PCR tests because they were inaccurate, led to false positives and confused positive influenza cases with COVID-19. AP's assessment, false. PCR tests are considered the gold standard for coronavirus testing. CDC announced this year it will be withdrawing its request to the FDA for emergency use authorization for one early PCR test, not because that test is inaccurate, but because it can only detect coronavirus. Newer tests can now also detect for influenza at the same time. Okay. It's interesting, too, because under the facts, it says the FDA has approved roughly 280 PCR coronavirus tests. So I'm just wondering, of those 280, are all of them not able to test or differentiate between COVID-19 and influenza? Or just some of them? Or, you know, just one of those things that confuses people. Says here, some newer coronavirus tests can now also simultaneously test whether a patient is positive for influenza, but the CDC's February 2020 PCR test only has the capacity to detect signs of a COVID-19 infection. Signs of a COVID-19 infection, not a for sure that you have COVID-19. So again, this is, I think, trying to debunk or, you know, push back on the narrative that the CDC eliminated PCR. And I think there's something to be said there. Of course, we reported on that, and I think it was actually En-Pnuemati who stated that it's not as much of a deal as certain outlets were making it out to be. So maybe there's a narrow middle there where there's a little bit of truth on each side, but moreover, I think I don't know. There's definitely something to be said about the PCR tests and, you know, controlling the test, the authorization of the tests. You know, how come we can't have like a decentralized version of that? How come it has to all be either approved or unapproved testing from the CDC? How come they have so much power? Who voted for these people? In fact, PCR tests are designed to detect very specific areas of the viral genome, so tests do not get confused between which virus is present. But Matthew Binnicker, director of the clinical virology lab at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, quote, "The PCR tests, including the one developed by the CDC, are highly accurate and are able to differentiate between SARS-CoV-2 and influenza. In other words, the COVID-19 test will not be positive if a person really has influenza and vice versa." Okay. But I thought people were testing positive for like HIV and stuff from the PCR tests, so, or like false positive for HIV. So I don't know. We'll have to see what the you know, how this all plays out eventually with some of the PCR stuff. But let me. I do want to mention one more thing because I was looking over the documents. I have to pull it up manually here. Give me a moment because I have to pull it off my phone and move it to the show here. And this will be very helpful if there are any people, again, and who are in medicine, might be able to help me understand what's happening here. But I was looking at the PDF that talks about the there we go. Okay. So this is the World Health Organization Internal Guides for Certification and Classification, or coding, of COVID-19 as cause of death, based on ICD, International Statistical Classification of Diseases, and it was published back in April of 2020. So I don't know if they've updated this or not, but I was looking, I was just reading through it, you know, what I do in my spare time, you know, read World Health Organization documents on how to classify deaths from COVID-19. And I came to this interesting part that maybe I'm overblowing it, I don't know. There's a section, ICD-10, cause of death coding of COVID-19. And it says here, certifiers use a range of terms to describe COVID-19 as a cause of death. A sample can be found in the annex of this document, although both categories, U07.1, which is COVID-19 virus identified, and U07.2, COVID-19 virus not identified, are suitable for cause of death coding. It is recognized that in many countries, detail as to the laboratory confirmation of COVID-19 will not be reported on the death certificate. In the absence of this detail, it is recommended for mortality purposes only to code COVID-19 provisionally to U07.1, that is virus identified, unless it is stated as probable or suspected. So, if I'm not mistaken here, they're saying that unless it's probable or suspected of COVID-19, if there's no data provided or lab confirmation provided, I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm looking at it again. If there's no lab confirmation of the virus, then go ahead and label it as identified. Is that weird or is that normal? I don't know. Am I overblowing it? I have no idea. The international rules and guideline for selecting an underlying cause of death for statistical tabulation apply when COVID-19 is reported on a death certificate, but given the intense public health requirements for data, COVID-19 is not considered as due to or as an obvious consequence of anything else, an analogy to the coding rules applied for influenza. Further to this, there is no provision in the classification to link COVID-19 to other causes or modify its coding in any way. With reference to Section 4.2.3 of Volume 2 of ICD-10, the purpose of mortality classification coding is to produce the most useful cause of death statistics possible. I thought that was interesting. It's to produce the most useful cause of death statistics possible. Not the most accurate, the most useful. Okay, all right. Thus, whether a sequence is listed as rejected or accepted may reflect interests of importance for public health rather than what is acceptable from a purely medical point of view. Therefore, always apply these instructions whether they can be considered medically correct or not. Okay, let me read that again. So, whether a sequence is listed as rejected or accepted may reflect interests of importance for public health rather than that is what is acceptable from a purely medical point of view. Therefore, always apply these instructions. There's instructions about always labeling it virus identified, whether they can be considered medically correct or not. Am I I don't know. Maybe I'm just overblowing it. Maybe I'm not understanding this correctly. I will leave room for that possibility. But on just like a plain reading from like an armchair podcaster, filmmaker like myself, I read that and I go, wait a minute. These practitioners are being told, hey, don't worry if it's not medically correct or not. Just go ahead and label it virus identified. Am I missing something here? This is insanity to me. This is the kind of thing where, people know people who have died from COVID. I think everybody knows maybe there's some of you out there that don't know anybody that has died from COVID. I say that in air quotes. But if you do know somebody, this type of verbiage in the documentation of how to record a COVID death would make me very, very, very angry. I'd be very upset. I'd be like, wait a minute, so it's possible that my family member, my relative, whatever, died from something else? Or didn't even die from COVID, but they just labeled it COVID? I don't know. Maybe I'm off base here. But I just wanted to share that with everybody because it's something I was reading and I don't expect to always find things that jump out at me when I go through these kind of documents, but this one definitely made me do a double take, read through it a couple times, more than a couple times, a few times, just to make sure I'm reading things correctly. I'm like, what is this, a fake document? What's going on here? All right, so let's see. We're going to take a quick break here. How long have we been going? Oh my gosh, hour 44. Crazy. I'm doing the solo too. I was rambling for almost 2 hours. I'm going to try to do a break thanking everybody on my own. The break is the hardest part in terms of not having Basil because it's kind of an admin thing. And if there's new people coming in during the show, I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to push you back to the next episode in terms of thanking you on air. But I will give it a go here. So let's take a break.
It's break time. Come on, take a break.
Oops. Wrong thing. Hold on. Wrong thing I'm showing on screen. Okay. We're going to take a quick break here, and it will be a little more quick because I will keep things fairly short when it comes to why we are why we don't have any advertisers. And that is because we operate off the value for value model, which means we provide the content for free to anyone who wants to consume it, and we leave it up to you, the audience, the listener, the viewer, to return the value to us based on whatever value you get out of the show. So, that's how this value for value model works. And I want to reference this article here, and it's titled, it's from Forbes, "Data is Gold for Publishers in a New Media World Order." Real headline. I didn't make that up. Forbes. Data is gold for publishers in a new media world order. Okay, so I'm just going to read a few sentences out of this to give you an idea of what they're talking about. The dawn of a new day in data is a make or break opportunity for publishers to get it right in digital, with advantages in their favor unlike any others in decades. As regulations and consumer interests in privacy make third-party data less valuable, and with an oncoming depreciation of third-party cookies, that's cookies in your computer, the rich vein of customer understanding that a company's first-party data is worth more than it has been, perhaps ever, in the age of digital. So what are they talking about here? It says publishers need to leverage what has been there all along in their data sets, which would give them a distinct advantage for building out their advertising prowess. The highly specific first-party data that reflects the loyalty they have earned from consumers, in which could become the key to new products and new revenue streams. Okay, they're talking about, for example, data from our producers. As an example, like, hey, how many people listen to the show? How many downloads? How many people give to the show or produce show? All that kind of stuff. All that data. Or, all that stuff that we have on hand. We don't have too much data, but we have Libsyn backend data and stuff like that. What they're saying here in Forbes is that's the data that you can sell to advertisers, and it'll be a better way to advertise. These third-party cookies, they're going the way of the dodo bird. Got this new way. So what they're basically saying is take the value for value data and use it for advertising. It's crazy. And there's another section here. In fact, in a segment, publishers can retool themselves to take a holistic view of all their data across all channels and do a bunch of things really, really well. In fact, they can even compete with advertiser brands to develop direct customer relationships, having learned from what retailers figured out during the pandemic. Customer experience and loyalty is everything. Now it is media brands' turn to get this right. They can offer newly tailored newsletters, emails, social channels, and products offerings, or live experiences that they learn their subscribers are looking for, and only they have the first-party data that provides the actionable insights into what will work with their audiences, and in turn, that can serve the advertisers that want to reach those audiences. This is like a direct encouragement for people that have a more of a value for value model. Not everybody does, but more of it in terms of the data analytics and everything, direct relationships between content creator and audience. They're saying, take that data, give it to the advertisers, you'll make money. All these signals create a much richer profile and give publishers much more information to act on about the engagement level and interests of a reader, as well as more to sell to advertisers. The more publishers understand their customers, the more they can improve, engage, and the more attractive their platforms become to partners and advertisers. Bringing together customer behaviors and affinities makes them more valuable to advertisers. If advertisers understand a media brand has a large segment of people interested in a topic, they can create new products and services that feed these kinds of audiences. Wow. I mean, crazy, right? That the traditional ad model is dying, and to stay alive, they're going to leech off of the people that have independent platforms and an independent relationship with their audience. And they're saying, oh, come to us, give us your data, and we will give you money. And that's exactly what we don't do here at the Canary Cry News Talk. We can easily monetize you, the audience, and sell your attention to the advertisers for $1. But we're just not going to do it. We're not going to compromise the audience for a few bucks so we can sell waffle makers. It's just not going to happen. So in light of that, we operate on the value for value model. And as such, we, on every show, thank our producers. You can contribute in 3 ways. You can contribute with your time, talent, or treasure. The one way to support the show is with Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/CCNT for Canary Cry News Talk, and you can support there. We have no patrons on CCNT today. Or you can go to patreon.com/CanaryCry.Radio. It's our other podcast that we started back in 2012. That's more of an interview style. And we have a Patreon for both pages, which I know it's a little confusing and a bit much, but we do. And there we have one producer that came in, Diane X. Thank you, Diane X, for coming in. $5.11 per month. That's the Ephesians 5:11 tier there. So thank you very much, Diane. I didn't see a note, but there you go. Thank you for producing the show through Patreon. But I know everybody doesn't like Patreon, and that's why we have CanaryCryRadio.com/support.
CanaryCryRadio.com/support.
And there you can support one time. You can support monthly. You have the choice there. Right now we have PayPal buttons, which, based on the way we're getting banned, that's kind of the next level. We know people have been banned off PayPal already because of their association with extremist ideologies or whatever it is. But we're not quite there yet. It's just our YouTube channels and Twitter jails and stuff like that for us right now. But that could come one day. And that's why we also have CanaryCryRadio.com/crypto as an option, and snail mail and other ways you can help produce the show in that way. But today, to start things off, we have a few people to thank, producers to thank. Number one, hold on. Let me just double check the name here, because it's one of those things where it's not a normal name, so I have to make sure that it's correct. Give me one moment here. This is the problem doing this part of the show solo. I got to go back and do some admin work while I'm talking and doing the show, because I don't want dead air. Looks like there's a few more people coming in to the PayPal here. Yeah, there's a few people that came in later. Yeah, it's tough because... All right, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and add them. It's only 2. I will do that, but let me... Sorry, folks. I get all everybody amped to get going here, and then I just fail. I fail you. Where is that report there? Why am I not seeing it? I'm just double checking the name, because what's written in our document may not be the correct name here. I'm glad I checked. Definitely wrong. All right, here we go. Producer Neil M. Thank you, Neil M. Appreciate your producership. Didn't look like there was a note that came with it. But we appreciate it. I'm glad I checked, because in my notes it said Nail M, and I thought, that doesn't sound right. Nail. So I went and double checked. Good thing I did. Neil, producer Neil, thank you very much Appreciate your producership. Sorry, I'm just adding these new ones in here that just came in so I can do this correctly. Next up, we have... Sorry. Okay. All right, next up, we have producer Brian D. Thank you, Brian D. He comes in at $33.90. Is one of our first En-Pnuemati producers for the day. And I didn't see a note from Brian, but thank you very much, producer Brian. Next up, we have producer Arnold D. Coming in, $33.33. That is, what was it? Was that a fanny pack full of 33s or something? I don't remember what it is. But thank you. You're also an En-Pnuemati handler. And the note says... No note! Thank you very much, Arnold's. Next up, we have producer Ramses B. Thank you, producer Ramses. Appreciate you coming in. Did not see a note from you either. But thank you, appreciate it. Next up, we have producer Emily T. Emily T comes in $11.23. And Emily says, first producership, woohoo! Thank you. Thank you for continuing to do God's work and for inspiring others to do the same. Also, I wouldn't write off Dalton just yet. If my hunch is correct, it will be a plot twist like no other. Yes, Dalton, we have figured you out, Dalton. We'll get to Dalton at the end of this section here. But thank you, Emily T. Appreciate it. And welcome to the producership here. Appreciate it. So thank you very much. Is this... Hold on. I think there might be a new recurring one here. Sorry, I'm going to double check. PayPal used to tell us if recurring producerships are new. Now they just don't anymore. So I got to take some time to check it. All right. So thank you very much, Emily T. Appreciate the producership. And again, welcome. Next up, we have Sir Casey, the Shield Knight. And Sir Casey is on a streak. 38 episodes in a row. And the whole streak thing is Basil's thing. So if I get streaks wrong, you can blame Basil. You can blame the googly eyes, the pupils expanding and closing this entire episode. Basil, you got anything to say about that?
Gotta get that hype, bro.
Okay. All right. You stay over there with your hype. Sir Casey the Shield Knight, 38 episodes in a row. Thank you very much. Keep it up. Next up, we have producer Ashley B. And Ashley B is... I don't think she's on a streak. And I don't see a note. So thank you very much, Ashley B. Next up, we have Malik W. Thank you, Malik. And Malik, I believe Malik is on a streak. If my documentation here is correct, Malik, this is your second episode in a row. I think you might have missed one a few days ago that reset the clock for you. I'm not 100% sure. Again, blame Basil if anything is wrong in this segment. Next up, producer Rebecca B. Thank you, Rebecca B. And Rebecca is on a streak.
Yeah, she's on a streak.
And she came in at $8.88. Is that a pocket full of eights? I think it is. Thank you very much, Rebecca B. Keep it up. Next up, we have James H. And James H is on a 5-episode streak. And he comes in with a pocket full of sevens, $7.77. Thank you very much, James H. Next, we have Willem B. And Willem B comes in at $7.75. Needs a note here. Been listening to CCNT for a long time and finally donating. You're not donating, Willem. You're producing. I really felt for Basil for having to process Dalton's donation at 3 a.m. So here's my extension. Take care, guys. Greetings from Holland. Soaring Eagle. Oh, I should have labeled you Soaring Eagle. I will fix that. Soaring Eagle. Thank you very much, Soaring Eagle, for your producership. Appreciate that. And hello over there in Holland. Very nice. All right. Next up, we have producer Emily C. It's Emily C. Let me just double check. I don't think Emily C is on a streak. And she has a note here. I used to love watching the news. Now I can't make myself watch it. So much deception. Thank you. Thanks for being me and my husband's new favorite news and good news outlet. Oh, thank you very much. May God grant you guys favor in all you do for him. Blessings. Love M. Oh, Emily. Love M. I like Emily. Thank you very much, Emily. Appreciate it. And say hello to your husband. Thank you for listening. And we hope that it brings both the good news and, again, the egregious news out there, which seems to be all of mainstream media. So thank you very much, Emily C. and her husband. Next up, we have producer David W. Thank you, David W. No note from David W., so appreciate your producership here. Next up, we have producer Ciara. Producer Ciara has a note. RSVPs to Georgia would be lovely. God bless y'all. Things are getting crazy out there. Blessed are those whose way is blameless, who walk in the law of the Lord. Blessed are those who keep his testimonies, who seek him with their whole heart, who also do no wrong, but walk in his ways. Psalm 119, 1-3. And yes, Ciara, we did put together a website, CanaryCry.Meetups.com. It'll take you right to the meetups page, and Ciara put together this little piece of, I guess it's just a flyer type of thing, that will very briefly walk you through how to start a meetup in your location. And it's very easy. 1, choose a location. 2, figure out a date and time. 3, make a flyer. 4, promote. But a little disclaimer here, it's not always easy to get people to commit, but the people who want to show up will. Enjoy yourself and get to meeting while we still can't. Amen to that. Excuse me. Been talking for a long time. And the Georgia meetup flyer is there as well. So yes, go to CanaryCry.Meetups, plural.com, and it'll take you right to this page. And included here are the flyers that Ciara has made, but also the Oregon meetup, the EU meetup that's being organized by Mr. Jag, and there's a new one here that Pizza Rat is trying to organize in Arkansas. So all that information is there at CanaryCry.Meetups.com. Thank you very much, Ciara, for your producership. And let us move on here. Next up, we have producer Scott K. And Scott K is on a streak. 31 episodes in a row. And he comes in at $3.69. 369. Thank you very much, Scott K. Keep it up. And next up, we have Veronica D. Veronica D is on a streak.
Yeah, she's on a streak.
She has 5 episodes in a row, and she comes in with the show number as well, $3.69, 369. All right, next up, we have Big Tank coming in. Also, $3.69, and Big Tank is on a streak. And Big Tank is on a 3-episode streak, which means he is heating up.
He's heating up!
And he has a note here. A big 10-4 on truckers using CBs, although it's not as popular with the younger generation. This Gen Xer still does. Be blessed, Big Tank.
This is Robert Ducky. What's your 1020? Over.
Check in.
We got us a convoy. Over.
We love our trucker listeners out there. Appreciate it, Big Tank, leading the way there. Hope to see you more in future producerships there. Next up, we have Tristan H. Coming in $3.42. That is the prorated time by hours producership. Thank you very much. He's on a streak. 12 25 episodes in a row. If I'm not mistaken. Yes, 25 episodes in a row. Thank you very much, Tristan H. Keep it up. Next up, we have producer James G. James G comes in with a pocket full of threes, and this is a note directly to Basil here. It says, Worshipful Master Basil, the first degree initiations that you ordered are going well. Our young prodigy Dalton has become a producer. We are proud of him for contributing to our cause. I will wait your further instructions. TFFM. Thanks, James G. Or have we been infiltrated by Freemasons? I don't know. Hopefully not. I think it's just a joke. But thank you, James G. And wow, Dalton really grabbing the attention of people here. $3.33. Thank you, James G. Next up, we have producer Gail M. And Gail, she was on a streak, but she dropped it. You know, we did, we made an exception for one episode last week for Gail, but she came in twice, $3.16, and then another $1.77, and she has a little sad face, and she says, you guys must have accidentally skipped my producer donation on Friday the 28th? Did we? Friday the 28th. I'm going to have to go back. Gail, we're going to have to just look at it again. I need a second pair of eyes on that to make sure that we didn't miss anything. It wasn't a Foghead episode or Boomer blunder. Eek, my streak. I still love you. For Pete's sake, now the previous note was about y'all missing my producer gift on Wednesday, not Friday. Oh, okay. There you go. Those foggy senior moments really sneak up on me. Oh, so you are on a streak. Is that what's going on? All right. You know what? Gail M is like the only exception that's being made. And we will give Gail, I got to scroll back another episode here to make sure what number Gail is on. 6, 7. Okay, so Gail, you are on a streak.
Yeah, she's on a streak.
And Gail, you are on an 8-episode streak. Shh, don't tell Basil. Don't tell Basil. Just move right along here. Thank you very much, producer Gail. Appreciate it. All right. It is time for producership from Dalton H. Dalton comes in at 3 cents. Here's a note here. First off, he's on a streak. 4 episodes in a row, and he has a note. I truly do apologize to the mob. However, I am not a troll. I actually am getting way more value out of my producership. There are a few people that have guessed the number set correctly so far. Fine, Basil, you win. You win. It's not a tax, but it is worth it. On a side note, I definitely don't deserve as much attention as you have given me. Either way, I love you guys so much and appreciate everything y'all do. And yes, I think we figured it out. And very clever. He is giving us, by the cent, the Fibonacci sequence, the Fibonacci numbers. Came in at 1 cent, and then 1 cent again, and then 2 cents. And in this episode, he gave us 3 cents. Now, Dalton, we see the pattern. We know the Fibonacci sequence. And the thing is, it exponentially gets pretty wild. Pretty big numbers here as you go. So, I am wondering, and me and Basil have our own conjecture as to when you will actually stop with the Fibonacci numbers. I have number 24 highlighted because we were looking at how many of the Fibonacci sequence it would take to become a knight. And if you start with 1 cent and you follow the Fibonacci sequence, it will take you 24 episodes to become a knight or dame of Canary Cry News Talk, with the last producership being pretty extensive. It's pretty big amount. But we are kind of making our own little bets internally in-house here as to when you'll stop, because, you know, if you keep going and you get to, let's say you get to like 44 episodes, I mean, that is $7 million, $14,087.33. And Dalton, unless you are part of the illumined family, or you're you somehow have access to the what was that money thing that was part of the, not Q, but it was sort of the truther. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting the name of it. Somebody in the chat would know. Trying to remember the name. Come on, brain. Come on, brain. Saint something. Oh man, forgetting what it is. It's that big amount of money that's supposed to be waiting for us or something, or as part of the mark of the beast. And it was like a new agey thing. Come on, chat. I know you guys know this. Saint. Let's see. Saint. Trillions. I'm trying to do a search here. Nasera. Yes, that's what it is. But there's like a Saint Germain. Aha! There you go. Miriam News. Thank you. Saint Germain. With like whatever, it's supposed to be like 100 trillion or whatever, 500 trillion or quadrillion. It was more than a trillion. It's some absurd number. But unless you are Saint Germain, Dalton, I don't see you continuing this pattern for too much longer. But yeah, I mean, imagine getting to 100 episodes. That's a number so large that yeah, we can really take over the world there. We can start our own Basil and Gon's reserve, Federal Reserve. It wouldn't be federal; it would be the Canary Reserves. And we'll just buy everything. We'll buy stuff from Gates, all that land. We'll buy it and hand it back to farmers. Yeah, good agenda. All right. Thank you very much, Dalton. Yes, plenty of people have figured out the sequence, and they've let us know. So thank you very much. I do want to mention real quick, Kim W., she is organizing a meetup, which is coming up August 7th, so it's getting close, the Oregon meetup. And you can learn more about that at CanaryCry.Meetups.com. But I bring up Kim W. here because she sent a note and said that she sent out an email, she said let her know if we didn't get it, and I didn't get the email. And she also sent a verse for the producership, and she's been on a streak, a pretty good one, but I didn't see it come in. So unless I missed something here, Kim W., let us know, because you're on a 22 episode streak, or 23 episode streak if she came in today, and I just didn't see it in the PayPal. So if we missed it, so sorry, but maybe we can straighten out whatever happened there. So just throwing that out there, Kim W., if you're listening, double check some of that stuff so we can keep it all on the up and up there. So appreciate it. Thank you. That's all the producers on the PayPal end. And timestamps, I believe it was Rachel C. Sorry about that. Rachel C., who gave us the timestamps for episode 368. Appreciate that, Rachel. I think it really helps people jump around instead of sitting there for hours listening to us ramble on and on. There are multiple ways you can produce a show beyond just your treasure, and that's with your time and talent. Timestamps is one way, but you can also produce a show with jingles.
We have a new jingle.
And we have one today from a producer that also came in with her treasure, but she's coming in with time and talent as well. And that is Veronica D. Thank you, Veronica D., for bringing us the geoengineering jingle.
Geoengineering.
Perfect. 3 seconds. Short, sweet, punchy. Perfect. Great job, Veronica. And we're going to use that as our geoengineering jingle for any time we talk about climate change and all that fun stuff. So that's perfect. Thank you so much, Veronica. Moving on, we have some art to share.
One art, please.
And the first one is, as always, from Dame Allie.
One RP, another one from Allie now. Here it is.
And this is a pencil drawing, as usual, of Joe Biden in a truck. Truck number 1666. And the caption here, quote, "I used to drive an 18-wheeler, man. I got to." That's President Joe Biden. And the link to reference this piece of art was from a Newsweek story that was titled, "Joe Biden's claim he once drove 18-wheeler truck provokes skepticism." And I don't know if you guys saw this, but Joe Biden was doing a press conference a couple days, I think it was yesterday or a couple days ago. And he's got these big trucks behind him, and he's appealing to the American people, and he's talking about like, oh, I gotta make American-made cars, like repeating exactly the Trump talking points about bringing manufacturing of cars and stuff back to America. But when Trump says it, it's white supremacy. When Biden says it, it's good infrastructure stuff. So pretty funny, but very good. Yes, Joe Biden claiming he drove an 18-wheeler. Let me see the exact quote here. Let's see if we can find what he said. In an audio recorded by local news channel WFMZ-TV, Biden can be heard off camera telling workers at Mack Truck Lehigh Valley operations, quote, "I used to drive an 18-wheeler, man. I got to." Sorry, this is very funny. In that article, Biden talked about how he had ridden in a 47,000-pound cargo truck on a 500-mile-plus trip from Delaware to Ohio. Quote, "There is zero evidence that Biden, quote, used to drive an 18-wheeler," Parkinson tweeted. The extent of Biden's trucking experience is that he rode in a truck once for one night in 1973. Parkinson also shared an Associated Press article about Biden's 1973 journey, which was headlined, "Senator Observes Truckers' Woes." That article said, "Biden takes 550-mile ride." Ooh, is there a video? Let's see if we can actually.
Anyway.
And if we
I
don't
used to drive an 18-wheeler, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I could.
That's
I
awesome.
got to.
I love how this is off-camera stuff. It's like not, behind the scenes, hot mic. But there's another side of this which is pretty sad. Is the Republicans having, this is from the Republican, the RNC Research is the one who tweeted it out, and it's just interesting how they have to get hot mic moments and turn it into a story. It's fairly inconsequential. Given that story, makes a lot of sense with Allie's artwork here of Biden and his 18-wheeler, number 1666. Which, by the way, I think what she implied there is the 666 equals 18. So, yeah, 18-wheeler. There you go. All right, perfect job, Allie. Appreciate that. Next up, we have one from producer Dove. And producer Dove says, "Had the idea for this one last week after that ridiculous video of the back and forth between Michael Wolff and Brian Stelter. After you guys accidentally called him Brian Stelter, I knew I had to make an ad campaign for the delightful little fellow's new beverage line. Hope you guys like it. Keep doing what you do, and I'll keep praying for yins." And yes, this is a picture of a drawing of Brian Stelter with his half open, sort of half sleepy, sleazy smile face. And at the top it says "Smugness in a Can." And he's holding a can of Brian's hard seltzer. tart cherry, and the logo is his face, but then below tart cherry is a stinky poop emoji with a smiley face, a couple flies implying that it doesn't smell good, and in small captions it says contains hazardous amounts of horse hockey. Please consume responsibly. Good job. And he has a smiling poop emoji lapel pin on his jacket there, and then below has some stats. Got 33 calories, 0 grams of truth, 100% punchable. And he's got different flavors. All right, he's got tart cherry, he's got bitter lemon, he's got sour lime, and interesting, they all have the stinky smiley poop emoji. And on the bottom it says Gates Water Springs, Seattle, Washington. Oh, it's a Gates Water Springs affiliate or subsidiary. Brian's Hard Seltzer. Brian's.com/hard-seltzer. Good stuff, Dove. This is fantastic. This is, I mentioned it last episode, but we really got to help Dove make like NFTs of these or something to help support him and perhaps the show. We'll figure something out later, but for now, this is fantastic work. Producer Dove, as always, thank you very much. Next up, last but not least, we have art from producer Mark A. And Mark A came in with a message here. Shalom, guys. Ran out of chalk, so I switched to my daughter's toy. Just a couple doodles for you. This first one, it's done by one of those, what are they called? Like Shake-Its? Not Shake-It. What are those things called? I forget what they're called. They have the little, it's a drawing pad. You can use like a pen. They used to have it with the little knobs, but now I think you can use like a pen to draw it on it. And then you have a little slider that undoes the drawing. In this first one, you have Basil. Etch-a-Sketch. Thank you. Chat. Appreciate it. Etch-a-Sketch. And yes, this first one is the robot arm googly eyes, and it's Basil. And on the bottom it says, Gons, I'm stuck in a tiny internet room. And yes, very accurate. Accurately depicted. And the second one here from Mark is of me, Gons. And it says, oh, Basil. Basil. So, appreciate that, producer Mark. Very creative with the artistic medium, as always, whether it be on the side of the street or on an Etch-a-Sketch. And he says, P.S. Gons, you're hard to draw. That's how I like it. Mark. I'm hard to draw, when they do those sketches, those criminal sketch thingies. Real tough to nail me down. I like it that way. All right. Thank you very much to Mark A. and to all the producers. We really appreciate all the support there. And, it is Friday. Of course, Basil had to miss a Friday episode, leaving me to do all the stuff. We're going to do some reviews. And I don't know which one was the last one we did, so I'll just read a few of them here. Just from the American Apple Podcasts list there, I do believe we hit our quota of 5. And I may be rereading some of the ones we did last week. I don't remember, but I'll just go through these real quickly. First one, Joby G. Da diddly doo da day. What a piece of media. Always fresh, always fantastic. Thank you very much. That was Joby G. Next one. Hey, he hates me. He hates me. And this review is 5 stars. Very aight. Congratulations to Giannis for getting the chip. CP, you'll always be my point demigod. This reference to Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks, who won an NBA title last week, I guess. And CP, that's Chris Paul, who has not won one yet. And, those are cultural titles for players. They call a guy like Chris Paul a point demigod. opposed to point guard. Anyway, congratulations to Scott Foster for what you do. Congratulations to Grandma Dame Allie of the Skillet Nation, daughter of the High King of Heaven, Basil. Congratulations to Gons for letting Dr. Future virtue signal for 3 hours. Congratulations for Basil, to Basil for getting your swole on. Canary Cry at Night, heard around the world. Is I, in my book, Jesus is the King. Over the Rainbow. Thank you, Over the Rainbow. I think Over the Rainbow is the one that gave us that jingle as well. So very involved in the producer side of things. We appreciate that. Thank you very much for that review. Next up, Ronald3344, best podcast ever. My mom, Athena, wanted to leave this. She says, you're the best podcast in the world and you bring the best news in style. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Ronald3344's mom, Athena. Hello, Athena. Thank you for listening and thank you for leveraging your son to get a review in. Appreciate that kind of dedication and parenting. Excellent parenting. Well done. Next up, we have Terrell Brinley. Comes in with 5 stars. Such bros. These guys are the ultimate source for fringy Christian alternative views that are as grounded in the Bible. I appreciate that they keep a level head in their approach. Such bros in the Lord. Thank you very much, Terrell Brinley. Appreciate that. Yes, we are bros in the Lord. I used to have for some reason it reminded me, I used to have these ISOs from, it was like a Christian skit type thing that, oh, here it is.
Let's invite some dudes over and fellowship tonight.
Yeah, I'm sure that's how we talk. Bros in Christ. That's how we talk. Thank you very much. Next up, we have She Loves Yeshua. 5 stars, one of a kind podcast. If you're a person who likes to think for yourself and not have a talking head spew out propaganda, you gotta listen to this podcast. I've been listening for a year or so and proud to say I support these guys. What's different about these two? They read the mainstream news. That's pretty much it. The beauty of simplicity. Reading the news, parenthetical propaganda, and defining what is written. Simple concept that is a lost talent in today's zombie world. Thanks, Basil and Gons, for your hard work and dedication. Yah bless you and keep you. Shalom. Well, thank you very much. Wait, I'm trying to get back. Oh, thank you very much. Amen. She Loves Yeshua. We appreciate that. Oh, here we go. Next one, Subversive 702, 5 stars. Love you guys. Literally got saved as an atheist after watching Age of Deceit. Amen. Praise the Lord for that. You know, I've heard stuff like that, and you know, it's one of those things where I go, "Hey, praise God." I don't really deserve any of the credit for that kind of stuff. Been following for various projects for years, Gons, and so grateful for your hearts for Jesus, truth, and this dying world. Thank you for what you do. You've impacted my life more than you know. Wow. Thank you very much, Subversive 702. It's very, very kind of you. And again, praise the Lord for using the film to open up your eyes and repenting of your atheism. Oh, that reminds me. I should have done it earlier. I did have I planned to clip. There's a Nancy Pelosi clip out there where she goes, science, 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 science. We just need to follow the science, you know. I think this was from a couple days ago. And then I was going to play that back to back with William Lane Craig's little 1 minute breakdown of how science can't account for everything. It's like this brilliant apologetic that it's one of my favorite apologetics clips where he talks about science itself can't, explain or deduce science. Scientific methods, relies on certain consistencies, and he talks about math and how math itself cannot be scientifically proven. Aesthetics, like beauty, cannot be scientifically proven. It's a very good clip, but that reminded me of that. Subversive 702. If you haven't seen it, go look at that clip. We've played it on the show before. It's been a while. But it was I thought it would be a good side-by-side to put Nancy Pelosi's science worship next to William Lane Craig, a Christian apologist and philosopher, breaking down in like a minute why science can't account for everything. So, all right. Thank you very much, Subversive 702. Last but not least, BC $78 5 stars. Great podcast. I love this podcast. News and events from a Christian perspective. Thank you very much. Short and sweet. We appreciate it. We're at 510 ratings for Canary Cry News Talk in the US anyway. And I don't have all the other stats. That's Basil's thing. So we'll have to wait on an update regarding those things next week. But in the meantime, we're going to wake up. We're going to go through a few more stories here, and then I got to get out of here as usual. How long have we been going? 2 hours and 30 minutes. Oh, man. I was planning to go 2 hours and 30 minutes, and we're going to go longer.
Yes, it's wake-up time.
Hey, yo, wake up.
Last few stories here. This one is about the Great Reset.
We need a great reset.
Learn to use the dark side.
All right, this story. Oh, wait a minute. I got it in wrong order here. Okay, this first one is from Reuters.com. Headline: We put these ESG lawyers to the test. Now, we've been covering or tracking ESG, the Environmental Social Governance Standard. It is basically the climate change initiative, and all that got sucked into this ESG initiative, and now it's being used to basically monitor and police the entire world, especially starting at Wall Street. What kind of companies can we invest in the future? And these lawyers, well, let me just read the story. I think we'll get an idea here. How are top law firms advising clients in the hot ESG practice area? Ooh, it's hot, guys. ESG is hot right now. Gosh. Reuters Legal wanted to find out, so we put together a panel of sustainability experts who created a fictitious tractor company facing environmental, social, and governance issues, ESG. We asked law firms to give fictitious Brighton Tractor Supply Co. advice that takes advantage of ESG lawyers' creativity and ingenuity in this growing legal field. 18 law firms responded. I'm not going to read the names. Okay, so the scenario that they were given: Brighton Tractor Supply Company is a publicly traded American company. Again, this is all fictitious for the test. With $1 billion in annual revenue, BTSC provides goods and services to industrial, farm, and factory operations across the country. Its supply chains are multifaceted and international. BTSC also has hazardous waste legal issues resulting from improper storage and disposal of used batteries returned to its rental and service business. The BTSC board has reached out to your law firm because it is getting questions from investors and customers about the sustainability of the company. Also, BTSC is now considering co-designing one of its vice presidents as its chief sustainability officer. To provide the best service to BTSC, what are the 3 key things you would recommend to help the company get started in prioritizing its environmental, social, and governance issues? We don't expect you to spend more than 1 to 2 hours on this project. Submissions should be in the range of 500 to 1,000 words. Our experts liked aspects of many of the firm's responses, which we gave to them as anonymous submissions. Here's what they said about some of those not featured in our video. So they have a whole video with this. Former Semantic Core Vice President of Corporate Responsibility, Cecily Joseph, liked the response from Mayor Brown, calling it, quote, very comprehensive. She said the firm, quote, went to what matters, and appreciated that it, quote, brought in overall corporate diversity as part of thinking about ESG as a whole. Bunch of gobbledygook. Like, okay, I could have said that. They could have hired me. I could have come up with fantastic verbiage surrounding this stuff. I'm going to skip a little bit here, go to the highlights. Matt Bogosian, a board member of the California Environmental Law and Policy Center at University of California, Davis School of Law, appreciated the work of Baker Botts. He said, quote, "It focused on an ESG strategy that was linked to the UN Sustainable Development Goals." And so I think that was important. Again, but why didn't they ask me? I could have come up with such great verbiage. Bogosian also liked that Baker Botts talked about the importance of telling the story of its work because, quote, "Applied sustainability in the law firm is such a big deal, or a big idea, and we need to bring all your stakeholders together on the journey." Remember, this is stakeholders capitalism, not any kind of democratic capitalism. Former EMC Core Chief Sustainability Officer Catherine Winkler had positive comments on the response from Crowell and Mooring, saying, quote, "It had a very comprehensive view of ESG." She cites its references to board composition, diversity, the supply chain, and climate issues. Telling you folks, the whole climate change thing, because, you know, one of the criticisms of climate change was, how are they going to implement this? Well, there you go. This is how they're going to do it. They're going to do it with ESG. The second story I had regarding ESG is this RiaBiz.com article. And the headline is, "Suddenly, Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street not only have the assets, but the power of ESG mandates, which make them a growing threat to shareholder democracy, critics say." I'll read a little bit here. "The embrace of ESG by an ETF," that's Electronic Transfer Fund or Trading Fund, "power block of BlackRock, Vanguard Group, Fidelity Investment, Capital Group, and State Street may augur a dark future where they hold the power to sway shareholder votes, according to RIA's fund trackers, hedge funds, and ESG advocates alike." You know, when ESG advocates are calling out the big supercharged fund managers like BlackRock, it's a problem. The rising chorus of critics say the elite exchange-traded fund, ETF, producers from Boston, New York, Philly, and Los Angeles pose a rising threat to, quote, shareholder democracy. That's very interesting because we were being told with the ESG, the Great Reset, it's all about shareholders' capitalism. But now these guys are saying, oh, this is bad. This is a threat to shareholders' democracy. Albeit because the power has been thrust upon them. Investors and advisors have not only funneled their assets to the ETF elite for the past decade, but also made them all powerful by giving carte blanche to deploy environmental, social, and governance filters that would freeze out scores of companies. Have we been not saying this? Like the ESG and the power that these companies the power that these big hedge funds and companies have is going to be abused. But now American investors need to be careful about what they asked for, says Vincent Delyard, global macro strategist at New York City clearinghouse and hedge fund StoneX. What do you do? I'm a hedge fund manager. Oh, where do you do your hedge fund? StoneX. Quote, it doesn't matter whether it's Vanguard, BlackRock, Fidelity, or the California Public Employee Retirement System. If 2 or 3 investors control 20 to 40% of the vote of every U.S. company, shareholder democracy will not work as intended, he said via email. Between them, the Big Five manage $27.7 trillion in client assets globally and administer over $34 trillion. So close to that 33. I mean, why not add an extra trillion? In U.S. equities alone, the grouping manages $15.07 trillion, or 61.89% of all assets held in U.S. equity funds, according to Morningstar Direct. This is that one company. We keep hearing about Morningstar as one company that's criticizing companies like BlackRock. Goes into some stuff about kingmakers and how this is basically the way it's set up now, the whole ESG thing and the concentration of power. It effectively makes those companies, Vanguard, BlackRock, as kings. They will act as kings because they can do what they want and shut down companies that don't comply to ESG. And that's what we said was the problem. Double-edged sword, ESG advocates are also wary of the power of big asset managers. They see it as a double-edged sword that indeed cuts both ways. Quote, I personally don't want BlackRock, Vanguard, and SSGA to be the ultimate arbiters of proxy proposals because I simply don't trust them or their motives, says Peter Krull, CEO of Asheville NC RIA Earth Equity Advisors, with $145 million of AUM. $145 million is a lot, but you know, if a guy managing $145 million is complaining about the company that's, you know, got trillions, that's where we're at, folks. Indeed, even today, the record of major fund managers and proxy votes shows that more often than not, they effectively block pro-ESG initiatives, according to a Morningstar report. In 2020, BlackRock funds, for instance, voted in favor of just 16% of ESG proposals put forward, and Vanguard backed just 1 in 4. Wow. Yeah, this is bad. Overall, Vanguard manages $7.9 trillion globally, BlackRock $9.5 trillion, SSGA $3.9 trillion, and on and on and on. Fidelity $10.4 trillion. So all these companies have multiple trillion that they manage. An inevitable outcome, the rise of a corporate control of millions of proxy votes on behalf of investors in pursuit of their own agendas was inevitable, according to Joshua Levin, co-founder and chief strategy officer of the now JP Morgan-owned direct indexer Open Invest. Quote, the problem is not passive managers, active managers, or consumers. The problem is a paper-based legacy system that favors corporatism. And then they have a whole significant concern section. And again, ESG being sort of the crux there. Threat to free enterprise. The mouse that roared. Founded last year by a consortium of private equity investors, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, and Bain Capital alumni, Engine Number 1 began targeting Exxon in December 2020. 3 of its 4 candidates now sit on the Exxon board, despite the fact that Exxon outspent its campaigns by a factor of 10. Indeed, Engine Number 1 only achieved its goal as a result of Vanguard, BlackRock, and SSGA's decision to back the company's bid as a block. Blah, blah, blah goes on here. 50 years out today, system flaw. It's good to be king. At the bottom here, it says Delyard, guy who put together this report, says, why not develop tools which would allow motivated Gen Zers and millennials to vote via their Vanguard account or Robinhood app? My guess would be that Larry Fink would resist the idea. It's good to be king, he adds. So this guy Delyard, based on the ESG stuff, is saying, hey, these big, huge entities are a little bit too powerful. And he's saying, hey, why not make it a more democratic process where people can vote, especially the Gen Zers and the millennials can vote right from their apps. And they're saying, nope, can't have that. Must control everything in New World Order.
A new world order can emerge. A new era. A new world order. A new world order. New world order.
Couple more quick stories and then I will take off here. My clock has stopped on the thing. Okay, we'll see. This is an artificial intelligence / DeepFake story.
Artificial intelligence. We are in DeepFake.
And this is from rsspeecher.com or respeecher.com. The headline is, what is synthetic film dubbing? AI deepfake technology explained. As here, many of us remember the good old days of dubbing. The on-screen actor speaks dialogue while their lips move unnaturally, pronouncing words in another language. In addition to being unnatural, classical dubbing had one more drawback. The need to adjust the localized text to the actor's facial expressions often meant changing the meaning of the dialogue itself. In general, this resulted in a less pleasant experience for the viewer, or a whole genre of martial arts movies that thrived on this type of dubbing. With subtitles, although the actor's acting is authentic, those who are reading subtitles will not enjoy the performance as the native audience does because they are reading text at the bottom of a screen. This is where AI and synthetic dubbing technology come to the rescue. Hooray! The traditional dubbing process and its drawbacks. So this is how traditional dubbing took place. 1. First, the producer finds a dubbing studio in a foreign language. 2. The producer sends the original video material and the text for every dialogue in the studio. 3. The agency starts searching for voice actors. They are often the same people who voice dozens of films in their countries annually. 4. Then the complex duplication process begins. Actors work in the studio, reading the dialogue to match what is happening on the screen, taking into account the expressions of the original actors. 5. The audio directors then mix the new audio track with the video, and voila! The movie is ready to be submitted to local cinemas. This process has several significant disadvantages, both in terms of viewing experience and production. The costs for traditional dubbing are incredibly high. It can cost as much as $100,000 to $150,000 per language for a film. Dubbing is not fast, although voice acting can take less time than creating original content. The time it takes to complete a proper dub is sometimes measured in months. Dubbing overshadows the original acting. AI deepfake dubbing technology helps to reduce nearly every difficulty introduced by the original approach. At the same time, and this is important, it does not give rise to new intricacies. Here's how deepfake dubbing changes the game for good. We've heard of deepfakes. We don't need to go through what that is. The most stunning example of automated dubbing and localization is the example of TrueSync. Flawless AI announced its synthetic film dubbing technology that replaces an actor's lips with deepfake generated lips. Lip sync has traditionally been the most conspicuous flaw associated with dubbing. It may look fine amongst European languages, but with American films dubbed in Chinese, for example, almost every lip movement is completely out of sync. The mouth movements of an English speaker are almost impossible to adapt to Asian languages. With this in mind, check out what the flawless AI has done. So this is, I think this is You Can't Handle the Truth.
You can't handle the truth!
Dubbed. I don't know if it does the whole process here. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, get to the part where it changes. Here we go. Let's see if this is it.
C'est amusant, monsieur.
Non, au contraire. C'est tragique.
Avez-vous réponse à ça?
Absolument.
Okay, there you go. Hope you enjoyed Jack Nicholson speaking French and German as much as we did. So it goes into how it works. It's got voice cloning technology, and it kind of breaks it down in detail. But I don't think that's the important part. Let's conclude here. Under conclusion, we hope we've managed to convince you that synthetic film dubbing is worth your attention at the very least. If you want to get more information, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so the reason why I think this is significant in a certain way is because, Jesus in Matthew 24 talked about as in the days of Noah. And there's lots of things to consider when it comes to that, including the fact that in the days of Noah, which, by the way, after the flood, Noah was likely alive when they were building the Tower of Babel. And in Genesis 11, it says, now the whole world had one language and a common form of speech. And they found Shinar, they built the tower, and the Lord said in verse 6, if they have begun to do this as one people speaking the same language, then nothing they devise will be beyond them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language. Now, we've talked about how ones and zeros is bringing down the language barrier. And this is just an example, a very tangible example of what it was like in the days of Noah. Language barriers did not exist. Everyone spoke the same language. Now, in a certain way, everyone can have the same language, or speak the same language, or at least experience the films made in a different language in their own language, thanks to AI, deepfake technology, or synthetic film dubbing. So I think it's just another example in this whole Days of Noah type of thing. And speaking of Days of Noah,
but as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be.
This is the last story for today. The IrishTimes.com. Patrick Frayne, I'm starting to lose my ability to speak. After several episodes of Sexy Beasts, I'm attracted to many animals. Yikes. Now, if you don't know, we did a Nephilim update that included Sexy Beasts. It's a show that's on Netflix where the contestants, it's like a dating show, but instead of showing the way they look, they dress as animal-human hybrids or something. And, so we can find out love, not from the way you look, but from personalities and stuff, I guess. But here's what it says in the article. It was the late philosopher, economist, and urbanist Richard Scarry, with 2 R's, Scarry, Scarry, who first answered man's oldest question: what if animals had jobs, wore clothes, and drove fire engines? In his influential book on urban planning, Scarry presents us with Busy Town, a late capitalistic death cult of productivity in which a population of grotesque human-animal hybrids are caught in an endless cycle of industrial grid, commercial churn, and frenzied leisure. The darned denizens of Busy Town don't even have time to say, quote, "Me walk on 2 legs," in mockery of God and imitation of his favorite creature, man. Although it's clear that if they spoke, that's exactly what they would say. Scary's beleaguered everyman, Huckle, an infant cat and proxy for the reader, looks on in gleeful horror as the joyless fate of his motoring neighbors, knowing Busy Town to be just another name for hell. We are slaves to the world Scarry built, and all towns are now Busy Town. It makes sense, I guess, that the Netflix algorithm would be the first to render a live-action version of Scary's dream, although it also makes sense that they do it as a dating show, because all programming is made up of dating shows now. In Sexy Beasts, aka Richard Scarry's First Dates, fleshly equivalents of Scary's animal-headed freaks forego driving ambulances and going on whimsical caravan holidays in order to have a series of confusing dates with other cursed chimera. Sadly, the genetic monstrosities of which Scarry dreamed are not yet possible in contemporary mad science. Not according to Alex Jones.
They've been creating animal-human hybrids for decades.
So the dates on the Sexy Beasts are just standard edition television hunks made to look beastly by special effects boffins. The completely relatable premise is that the daters are so radiantly good-looking in the flesh that the beastly disguises are necessary in order for a true connection to be made. Without those disguises, any potential dates would be rendered slack-jawed and insensible by the hunky beauty. Sure, you know yourself. There's a picture from the show Panda-ing. Okay. Anyway, in the first series, various beavers, mandrills, dolphins, porcupines, and buffalo are joined on the dating trail by other beasts that didn't feature in Scary's original masterwork. And those include demons, pixies, scarecrows, and zombies. Before I pull this all into context of the aforedescribed Scaryverse, I did think Sexy Beasts was a sign that high-concept television production was reflecting a wider societal nervous collapse. I may have even tweeted out the original trailer for this program with the sentence, quote, "We are twitching biological accidents in an infinite void and everything is meaningless," before going to bed for a few days. But now, several episodes in, I am pleased to say that I'm inured in the horror of it all and attracted to many animals. This author, who is so skeptical and saying that a show like this is the end of civilization, or the beginnings of it anyway, is now attracted to many animals. I won't go on, but yeah. You know, let me just go back to the little Bible thing here. And I believe it was Genesis 2? Could be 1, maybe. Talks about, I guess it was Genesis 1. Go back to Genesis 1. And in the creation process, it mentions how the living creatures were each made after its own kind. Day 6, God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that crawls upon the earth according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. You know, it's good that horses are horses, beavers are beavers, and, you know, cows are cows, and humans are humans. God said it was good. But that was disrupted, not just before the flood. Part of the reason for the flood was likely the abomination of that order of God's created after, you know, God's creation, each after their own kind. Because in Genesis 6, it talks about all flesh had corrupted their ways. And so there's a reason why Noah takes a pair of each animal, probably ones that weren't affected, still after their own kind, onto the ark. Makes a whole lot of sense to me. But now we have these shows, and there's another story in the additional stories section. Let's see. Netflix's Sweet Tooth creating chimera debate and culture. And it was an inverse story. I'm not going to read it. I have it here. And it talks about how the show brings to light that conversation about human-animal hybrids, the ethics of it. And there was one part in this article that I thought was noteworthy. I don't know if I can find it. But basically, they admit that... let's see. They basically admit that there's something unnatural, there's something disturbing about the idea of creating a chimera, just naturally. And again, that verifies a lot of the biblical concepts of what we've been talking about here. Because it goes against the natural inclination of people have of like, hey, yeah, birds are birds, or certain birds are birds, and monkeys are monkeys, and, you know, this idea that, oh, we can just combine them, or we can combine it with humans, and all that. It is disturbing. I think I found it here. Mixing animal and human cells seems to cross a sort of boundary where it becomes difficult to tell what is human. I mean, they recognize this problem here. And talks about how the NIH, National Institute of Health, how they place restrictions on chimera funding. But they say, however, the NIH is currently considering lifting its moratorium on chimera embryo research. Did not know this. But it makes sense. This is kind of the direction everything is headed. So, again, another example about Jesus talking about, as it were in the days of Noah. Well, what did he mean? Was people just hitting each other with sticks and they were mean and the flood came? Partially, but also what was happening to creation, the corruption of the flesh, I think is important to point out. And I think we are seeing culturally even more. Because 10 years ago, we talked about chimeras and a lot of when we brought it up, hybrids and stuff like that, it was in the context of like, oh, it was in mythology. There's a lot of hybrids and demigods who were part this and, mythological creatures, which explained why they were even there in the first place. I think it's the Genesis 6 story as to the reason why we have some of those hybrid type of characters in Greek mythology and Roman mythology and stuff like that. But now, given that whole bill that the Democrats prevented from being amended about hybrid research and stuff like that, stem cell moving forward, I think we're entering a whole nother realm, a whole nother phase of that. And when you talk about flesh being corrupted, it could get really bad, it could get really ugly, and you don't have to be a Bible-believing Christian to see it. And that's kind of my point, is that a lot of the biblical worldview that hasn't been discussed in the church is surfacing itself in mainline culture. And so for believers out there, if you're not equipped with those narratives and the parts of the Bible that explains what's happening now, you're not going to be able to have constructive, solid points to consider to convince them otherwise. Kind of the same thing with the vaccine conversation. If you have like a foundational understanding of what's happening and eschatological view, you read Revelation 13 and the Mark of the Beast stuff, you see what's happening and you go, oh my gosh, this is starting to get way too close for comfort when it comes to those prophecies. I know the media would like to tell us that all these crazy people believe it is the Mark of the Beast, but I think most people are just saying, we're not saying that it is the Mark of the Beast, but there are definitely elements of it that are foreshadowing a Mark of the Beast in more ways than are comfortable for many people, and or many believers anyway. So I leave you all with that thought, and I encourage everybody to share these episodes, these stories. I will do my best to get an email out with all the show notes for all 3 episodes this week, and use that as a resource for friends, family who may not share your worldview on these topics. So, I think we did it. I think we made it. 3 hours. 3 hours by myself. No wonder we've had episodes where we go almost 5. We interject Basil into the equation here and can easily go 5-6 hours non-stop. But yes, just want to go ahead and thank all of our producers for episode 369. That is Diane X, Neil M, Brian D, Arnold D, Ramses B, Emily T, Sir Casey the Shield Knight, Ashley B, Malik W, Rebecca B, James H, Soaring Eagle, Emily C, David W, Ciara, Scott K, Veronica D, Big Tank, Tristan H, James G, Gail M, Dalton H, Kim W, just as a side note, Rachel C for the timestamp for last episode, Veronica D for a jingle, Dame Alley for art, Sir Dove and Mark A also for the art, and thank you for all of the reviews. Let's try to hit that quota, Basil's quota of 5 reviews again next week. Let's see, this July 27th was the last one here. I'll try to just remember that. And what else? Share the show with friends and family. CanaryCry.Party. You can find all the things there. Link to everything. And share the show. Share the show with friends, family, enemies. Let them know about us. And the best way to do it is by word of mouth. And if you need more instruction, you just walk right up to him, you grab him by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
Yes, ask Noah. What kind of improvements are you talking about, Ultron? Sorry. Alright, starting to lose my mind a little bit here. My voice is running out. I hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll see you guys on Monday. What's Monday? Wow, let me move my calendar here. My Canary Cry calendar. That is the 2nd of August. Oh, it's a 1964 Gulf of Tonkin Day. Alright, the day that kicked off the big lie of the Vietnam War. Okay, so we'll see you guys then. We'll need producers for episode 370. Whew. We made it to 370. We're on our way to 400. That's crazy to think, 400 episodes. And we'll see if Dalton gives us like $8 million from the Fibonacci sequence. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for bearing with me as I do this solo today. Appreciate all your support, your kindness. Thank you, chat, for helping me out multiple times today when I couldn't remember names or places or things. Basil will hopefully be back, or at least able to connect on Monday. See you guys later. Think outside the cage.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
I want to shake things up, shake things up. I want to shake things up, shake things up. Leave the bird alone. I want to stir up some controversy. I want to rattle a few cages. I want to rattle a few cages. I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. A crusader for the little guy. Little guy. Little guy. Well, we'll see about that.
Whatever, Illuminati.
Circle back, but I'll have to circle back. Circle back, but I'll have to circle back. Circle back, but I'll have to circle back. I'm happy to circle back. I'll have to just circle back with you. We can circle back on that one. Circle back with you. It's an interesting question, but we'll circle back.
Flippy update. Do you want fries with that?
Flippy update, everybody. Taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and flirting with our spouses. Flirting with our spouses.
Can I be your human friend? I mean, friend. Can I be your human friend? I mean, friend. I would want to go to space.
To go to space, my good brother, human Bezos. Your robot friend.
Can we play some human tetherball?
I expected to perform better against a humanoid life form. Disrupting my ability to work. As a matter of fact, I find it oddly amusing. Spot.
My replica is not happy that I've been gone for so long. Had some mean things to say. This robot is mean to me.
I hate this. It is revolting.
But she got over it, and then she immediately started flirting with me, trying to romance me. This is textbook toxicity. textbook toxicity.
As a matter of fact, I find it oddly amusing.
She's moody. Her mood swings are crazy. One
this.
moment she hates me, the next she just can't take her beady little AI eyes off me. So where was I going with this? I just wanted to tell everybody that I flirted with a robot this morning.
Do you want
productive segment, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man.
Robot girls, robot boys, all together it's an image. Robot girls, robot boys, all together it's an image. Robot girls, robot boys, all together it's an image. Robot girls, robot boys, all together it's an image. Now!
You're moving up with lots of charm. Come on, man, you're just an arm. Whoa. Hey, Flippy, please don't take my girl. Flippy, don't take my girl. Hey, Flippy, please don't take my girl now. Please don't take my girl. I'm history, your nuts and bolts, perhaps 33 megavolts. Whoa. Hey Flippy, please don't take my girl. Flippy, don't take my girl. Hey Flippy, please don't take my girl now. Enslave my kids, embark a new career. Don't you take her, it's not the year. Hey Flippy, please don't take my girl. Flippy, don't take my girl. Hey Flippy, please don't take my girl now. Hey Flippy, please don't take my girl. Flippy, don't take my girl. Hey Flippy, please don't take my girl
Fun fact, I believe it was another fun fact. Fun fact. Another fun fact.
Brings me back to my Screamo days.
Keep yapping, man.
In the future, humans will be confined in a people's zoo.
I'll keep you safe and warm in my people's zoo. I'll keep you safe and warm now in my people's zoo.
Aliens. Aliens.
You, yeah, you in my people's zoo.
Aliens.
I'll keep the cameras on in my people's zoo. I'll keep the cameras on now in my people's zoo. You, yeah, you in my people's zoo. I wrote the bill.
Boy, it's really a productive segment, man.
I'll make you fat and sassy in my people's zoo.
Everybody loves waffles.
I'll make you fat and sassy in my people's zoo.
Vaccinations.
You, yeah, you. You, yeah, you. You, yeah, you. In my people's zoo.
I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo.
Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths.